Azalea for the first time, and that was against Brody on Briar. Azalea looked really strong. It was able to go tall. It was able to dominate attacks, but more specifically, it was also capable of having these disruptive elements. I was saying that it plays almost very similar to a Bravo, where you're going to have these on-hit effects that makes the aggressive decks have off turns. And in that situation, Azalea, I thought, looked really strong. Now, the second time we saw Azalea, it was against Oldham, and specifically one that had a lot of defense reactions, had extra earth cards so that it was able to reduce damage. So the dominated attacks just weren't as effective. But here in the quarterfinals, we're not to the semis yet. Flake got me confused earlier. Here in the quarterfinals, we're going to see Azalea against an aggressive deck. So if there was another time for her to shine, and in my opinion, I think this might be another great litmus test because it's going to be against Fi, and Fi was the most represented in the field. If you can do well here, again, I think that it will echo what Brendan was saying yesterday, which is maybe Azalea is now worth considering, because if you're expecting a large field of Fis, maybe some Briars thrown in these aggressive lists, then if you find success consistently, you got to consider a deck like that.
And there's just a myriad of different arrows that I feel like the Fi player is going to have to respect, much like the Bravo player that sort of attacks the Fi with all these crush effects. The Fi player eventually is going to have to respect those attacks. Otherwise, it just kind of shuts down a lot of the game plan here. Yes, this Azalea list is aggressive. 9 copies of Bolt and Shot in here to just give the multiple go-agains. But what's fascinating about this list is that it's so concise in terms of the equipment part, where there's only one decision to be made. Are you running Perch Grapplers or are you running Snapdragon Scalers? Otherwise, the entire package is the same. You're always running Bullseyes, you're always running Tunic, and you're always running the Cross Wrap, which I never even knew existed and had no clue. You could probably get one for $12 somewhere and feel good about it because you own a Legendary. But if Azalea suddenly catches fire, that might be an investment that you might make right now, is get all these cards. For example, read the Glide Path. Who knows? That sounds like something that you get from like
that's a non-attack action, but it's not one that you can turn on Waning Moon with, so I'm sorry, Uber.
Sorry, Uber. But like, yeah, read the Glide Path to me sounds like something that you'd read in like a friendly's waiter like a manual, like just one of those, like that's kind of what it sounds like to me. Like a lot of these cards are frankly just mysteries. And I would suspect, let me ask you this, because I didn't get to see much of those Azalea matches, just kind of skulking around, but were there a lot of those moves of just kind of, let's turn the card around and read it?
Yeah. So especially hold on. With Brody, this was a very interesting thing.
I just want to, I don't mean to interrupt. Can we just go to the table right now? I just want to show what's going on. This is both players reading the lists of their opponent, and I guarantee you that the Fi player right now is like, this is useless to me. Like, what the hell? This means nothing to me because I don't know what any of these do.
Can I get my deck list in English, please? Because this does not look like anything I'm familiar with. Right. No, it's funny that you mentioned that because we joked a bit about it on the broadcast. The first time we saw Azalea, it was against Brody. Brody is a great player. Probably did know what most of the cards did, but we still saw them take the time to turn the card over, read it, make sure that they understood the effects. And that's because even if you know roughly what a card does, if you don't have that like repetition in, because a lot of these players, they'll play, hundreds of games to prepare for an event. If you don't have that repetition in, then it's not immediately easy for you to kind of come to an intuitive answer. A lot of card game players, because of the reps, when they get in situations, they'll have those moments where they're like, all right, I pretty much know what my gut is telling me. Maybe I need to take a few moments to make sure that, I'm not being knee-jerky or I'm not overthinking things. But for the most part, the reps develop that natural intuition. That goes out of the window when you haven't tested against a deck. And I guarantee that nobody was just queuing up Azalea for, tens or hundreds of games in their testing groups.
Yeah, knee jerky is not my favorite. I like beef jerky, but knee jerky also, I guess, is pretty...
I'm a big fan of turkey jerky because I like the rhyming.
Dude,
the rhyming makes it taste better.
And actually, I was going to say, that kind of adds to it, right?
Yeah,
it's like fun.
You got to savor the flavor.
Yeah, you're having fun.
No, we're still rhyming. You're just not putting it together yet.
I'm just missing the timing.
Yeah, on the rhyming.
On the rhyming. All right, friends. I promise you, we will eventually take flight on this because We're not quite wheels up yet, but we're getting
We're going
there.
to take flight after we read the flight path. Is that a card?
Read the flight path is not a card. Read the glide path,
yeah,
however.
you're right.
The reason why is because,
me.
I mean, I was a bartender for 5 years, and part of it was when they're training you is like there was something called the glide path, which is when you're going in and out of the kitchen, you have to constantly go in the same flow of traffic because you can't go against the grain because you might knock into people. That was called the glide path. So when I read the glide path, all I get are these flashbacks to that whole other life I led for quite a while, which frankly led to a lot of mornings like this.
I am not surprised one bit, but I also, while we're waiting to get started here, do want to give a special shout out to the Realm Games because the reason we look a little discombobulated is they put on a fantastic event last night. There was drafting, there was first edition Crucible that was opened, and we had versions of Flip It or Rip It. There was a lot of cheering, a lot of fun, a lot of camaraderie, and for me personally, it just really reinforced why I enjoy these physical card games because when you get people together, we all enjoy the same thing. You get everybody having a good time. It's just such a good community feel, and I just feel like last night was fantastic. So
there was a
shout out to the Realm for putting that on.
Tommy Fresh slamming some Bruce Springsteen on.
Yeah, there was karaoke.
There's some karaoke as well. Yeah, there was a cold foil Sledge of Anvilheim that was absolutely torn asunder.
First edition cold foil.
Yeah,
right? We are talking
Gonzo.
Quality thing just ripped in half.
Why not?
Why?
Because I can't do
why,
that.
But why not?
I don't have the fortitude, the will to watch that occur. I really appreciate the cards I have. I still I love my collection and just watching. I had to go through heaps and heaps of piles of bulk to find just any Sledge of Anvilheim for
even think I have
for my Oldham deck for Nats. And then I just hear this cheer and the shock and awe of tearing a cold foil Sledge of Anvilheim in half, and part of me died inside, much like it feels this morning. Dead, but still fiery, I was mad, but I was also just, I'm like, this is something cool and new, but damn it hurts my soul.
I tried to stop this. I did. I tried to stop this.
Yeah. Look, that was Keith. Keith, obviously, he said we're going to play a version of Flip It or Rip It.
Yeah,
where
he
basically
was just giving them away. Like, you didn't have to rip them up. Let's put that out there. He was very generous. He said, guess what? You get to keep these. It's your choice.
But some people,
a bunch of degenerates.
Some people are just like, hey, that's super cool. Can I just light it on fire instead? Because apparently that's how we're going to do this. No, I don't know about you, Charmer, but if somebody's like, here are some first edition cards. These are very rare and coveted, beautiful pieces of flesh and blood history. Would you like to saw them in half? It's like, no, I do not want to do that. Please,
Oh,
no.
so you didn't see where I put my entire stack together and then I tore the whole stack apart?
You don't have that strength.
In a show of He-Man-like.
Yes, and then right when that was over, I personally tore a phone book in half just because I wanted to.
Okay, but one of these stories is true.
That's correct. The phone book was an Ohio phone book. And I don't know what the population is here, but it wasn't that thick.
We're talking to people who are probably so young they do not know what a phone book is.
Correct.
There was a time when every phone number in your neighborhood just got delivered to your doorstep, and it was called the phone book.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate stalking move. It's
yeah, it
incredible.
really was.
You had to pay to not have your phone number listed in the phone book. You had to go out of your way to not get stalked by the government or whoever the hell sent this out there. Oh.
All right. So now that we've got our first big tangent out of the way of the morning, I'm sure plenty more will come. We haven't even had one Star Wars reference yet. I'm shocked, but we are getting ready to get things started here.
Well, here we go. So it's going to be Azalea again. Not many decisions to be made, but we're going with the Peach Cobblers, aka the Perch Grapplers, instead of in lieu of the Snapdragon Scalers. Again, that 2-block is going to be very important. It's not about the game text on it. It's just another 2-block, which could just go ahead and kind of block out one of those Phoenix Flames if necessary on the back of maybe a Shuko that's going to come in for 2. Something that's going to basically just shut off the Mask of Momentum without committing a card here. It's going to be aggressive. Charmer, I don't think either player is interested in blocking too much. However, it's going to be about which arrows that Levi finds that are going to kind of give pause to the Phi player. As we started out with Mounting Anger, there is the first wave here. It is off to the races here at the Battle Hardened in Columbus. This is the top 8, the quarterfinals. 4 go again is how we're starting it off, and we're going to meet that right away with a Sink Below.
Yeah, this is a great way to start if you're the Azalea player, because you're not going to take damage from this 4 attack. You get great kind of block equity, right? The 5 player wants to leak damage here, but you can go 1 for 1. But also we saw them send a card, so on this kind of turn 0 situation, if you're trying to make your hand be a little bit better or dig for some of those really important arrows, that's a great way to get that done. We see the sword attack blocked out there as well, and as we're kind of like wrapping up this turn, this is looks like an attack for 2. Is that a lava burst that just didn't have the rupture? It does look like that was the case. So full block out, but just real quick to highlight those arrows that you're looking for. I think if you're the Azalea player, Red in the Ledger is going to be one of the big ones, because that's essentially Azalea's like version of Spinal Crush.
Yeah, it just kind of stops you straight away. Other cards like Remorseless as well. You got Sleep Dart. You've got Fatigue Shot. Not that Fatigue Shot's all that scary. You know, Fatigue Shot's going to kind of cut your attack in half. But when you're going so wide and you're so low to the ground, the effect of it is not immense. But there is a Ravenous Rabble, but unfortunately peeling a Knock the Death Whistle off the top, so it's going to come in for 2 go again, and that's not what you want to see. But that was kind of the flavor of the day yesterday as we were talking about this. I think it was Brendan and I were calling the Brody Spurlock match, where it was just everything that could go wrong did go wrong. He did pull it out in the end, but the Ravenous Rabbles are just hunting those blues apparently, and we're following it up with a Nimbleism into some nice arrow action. I'm not quite sure. I can't see it because the dice are all about it, but 8 attack is what we're looking at here.
So this is something that I was a big fan of yesterday, and I didn't really get a chance to talk about it a bit. Ravenous Rabble is kind of fantastic tech when you're playing Azalea, because she cares about the top card of your deck. That's why you run the opt effects. That's why you run that cross wrap that you were like, I don't even know what that card does.
No idea. I thought a cross wrap was like some sort of like sandwich.
And the Ravenous Rabble is just a nice 0-cost go-again attack that also reveals the top card. So in many ways, it's like not full opt, but it's letting you cheat to know whether or not you can activate that Azalea ability, or it'll let you know what you're going to draw from your Death Dealer as well. So big fan of that inclusion, and we did see some damage go through there. Azalea already has the 5-player down to 30. Phi now kicking things off with a Belittle.
It's a good point, though. You know, the fact that like Ravenous Rabble is kind of like a diet opt. You know, it's like opt light, where you get that information.
It's the Mr. Pibb of opt.
Absolutely, it's the margarine of opt. It's.
I can't believe it's not opt.
I can't believe it's not opt. Is that stuff? Ravenous Rabble getting it done, but yeah, you're right. Belittle coming through. We're gonna show off some of the wares there and look for some of those minnoisms in the deck here. For Matt is in the minnoism pile. We're looking at, there's the 1 blue, and I don't believe there's anything beyond that. So frankly, the Belittles are going to be out there hunting for fuel to power the turn here, as you're going to go ahead and tutor out that blue minnoism. That's going to be pitched for some gas here, and we'll see how this kind of plays out. But 3 go again is what we're presenting to start things off here. Levi Rauch on Azalea, Matt Moose on Phi, and again, a lot of the surprise here is the fact that not only did this Azalea have a very good showing here at the Battle Hardened, but there is a potential for, you know, what some may consider just upsets the whole way up the ladder. And here we have another 3 attack with go again, followed by a Command and Conquer.
So this is a very threatening attack because of the card in the Azalea arsenal. I feel like this is going to be blocked out, and we do see the 2 cards go down. The nice thing about Azalea is there is a lot of 3 blocks in the deck. So again, against somebody like Phi, where a lot of your attacks are 3 or a base of 3, you get that block equity that I was talking about before. And
Blockwitty.
Yeah, Blockwoody is a great way to, I guess, name it. Nonetheless, we still have that 2-card hand. Looks like, considering what to do here with the card from the top, I believe they activated the cross wrap to opt because I see the turn sideways up there. I just missed the hand motion at the beginning, but yes, they are opting with the cross wrap, and I'm very curious about what this card is because this is a tough decision, it looks like, and this is clearly somebody who knows the deck. So if they're taking that long in this matchup, that must be a really spicy option there on the top.
All right, again, Death Dealer is a fascinating bow, and it's one of the lesser played ones. It's basically the token that came from Arcane Rising, and we did a team draft of Arcane Rising yesterday, which was fascinating. It was the first time ever that I played against Abby Kennedy, Abby Davis, I guess, Jordan's wife, and we played in a Azalea draft mirror, and we both ran out it was a draw because neither of us had cards to play, because she basically blocked out, had no cards left. I had an arrow that I couldn't pay for, and then that was it. And the game ended, and we both felt completely empty inside.
Yeah, that is one of the rough things about the Ranger class when you're in Limited is that because you don't have an actual weapon, if you get down to the nitty-gritty, you just can't attack.
Hey, I've seen the 2 towers, okay? You can take the arrow, stab an orc, and then fire it off. You could just do the stab motion with the arrow. I have the arrow. It's in my hand. Legolas did it. Why can't freaking Azalea do it? I don't know, man. That should be a card. Stab the orc.
So the 5-player on offense here, we saw the Ancestral bump as far as the damage goes. So Azalea took 5, and it looks like we have a reveal there as well. So this should be going to the Banish Zone, but it will end up being played this turn. That's a 0-cost go again. But right now the sword attack is coming in. Looks like that's blocked out for 3, and now this comes in for 4 because of the mounting that connected earlier. It's normally 3 go again, gets that +1 because it was banished and now put on the chain. And this is a great turn for the 5-player because we still have a card in hand. We also are likely going to be seeing what I call the 5 superpower, the Phoenix, come out here as well. If you've got like a Salt in the Wound or some other big rupture effect, I think this is going to be a huge turn.
Both players now at 25 locked and loaded. You see the cards there in Levi's hand. I believe there is an E-Strike in there. So
yeah, Levi, they have to have a great hand. They're taking a lot of damage here.
All things considered, when you're giving a 5-player, kind of an open lane to do whatever they want, typically you're usually on the hook for like 15 to 20 damage. But it seems like that was not as dangerous. And I feel like Levi here, that kind of gave the green light to Matt and said, yeah, I'll take it. Just send it. And probably got away with a lot less than he may have suspected. And we're going to open up here with that E-Strike with Go Again, bottoming a card. So it's 5 Go Again. There's still an arrow locked and loaded here for Azalea. And again, lots of this happening.
So I believe that is a Bolton shot that he's got there, at least in the arsenal. But we have more in the hand. I'm just curious what's going to follow up the Enlightened Strike. I think that this is going to be one of the rare kind of like go wide turns for our Azalea player.
But the question here is, how do you give that Bolton shot Go Again? Because Death Dealer is such a fascinating card, but instead, there we go.
Oh, so I believe that's a Remorseless that we just hit. So absolutely fantastic pull with the Azalea. Remorseless is brutal for 5. If you're not familiar, it makes it so that whenever they take actions, they lose a life. So if the 5-player wants to go wide, they're going to be taking a lot of damage as a result.
That's interesting, especially when you're coming in with like a Phoenix Flame for 1. It's like, do you really want to trade 1 for 1? Let's do this. Like, let's accelerate the game. I'm sure both players will be like, you know what? Let's start the game at 20 life. Why not? Let's actually, we want to throw haymakers. Let's do it. And Remorseless is one of those cards that really taxes the go wide players, the do a lot of thing type players. It's not like you're just pitching and slamming in a crippling crush or something where, yeah, I'll take a life penalty to throw 11 your way. This is different. It's coming in clips and phrases of 4 and 3 and 1 and so this is a nasty piece. but it's completely blockable with the Furnace. You've got a card from hand. So this is not the death sentence that Levi may hope it is. Ultimately, though, you do need to chip away, Charmer, and I think just getting a Furnace block here could be good enough.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting. We do also still have that one card in hand, so maybe you're trying to sneak in something like a, rain of razors, rain the razors,
Rain raisins.
Rain raisins.
Raisins.
That's what it is. I
Peach
can't remember
cobblers.
what it is that you call it. Yeah, it's raisins and cobblers. Anyway, perhaps that is the case, but I suspect that you are just trying to get some of that equipment out of the Phi player. Again, this has dominate, so it's likely going to eat equipment if it is blocked, because Phi, one, doesn't normally run defense reactions, but also part of Remorseless is you can't play the defense reactions as well. So not only is it dominated, but also can't play defense reactions if you had them. This is really just about, do I want to make Phi block with a card and eat some equipment, or is the Phi player looking at their hand saying, what, I'm also okay with just taking a damage every time I play an action card. If the Phi player has, as you were saying, one of those like 15 or 20 damage hands, they might be okay with taking, 5 here and then like an extra 5, but does ultimately get the equipment. We got the Furnace and
one thing,
1/3 block there.
One thing that you have to appreciate from Uprising is the fact that a lot of the cards block for 3, and after doing the drafts of yesterday, doing like a Tales of Aria draft, doing the Arcane Rising draft, a lot of 2 blocks, and having the opportunity to just block 3 and toss an equipment in the front of a 5 dominate is like a really nice thing. So just little pieces about the differences in the sets and how things kind of evolved in the game as well. And there's a 3 go again, and we're going to follow that up with another 3 go again. Both Draconic Chain Links are coming through, and the Searing Emberblade is a nice piece. And we were talking about this yesterday where, Abby and I had that kind of Ranger standoff where neither of us had anything and we didn't know how to swing a bow at each other's heads. So having a built-in weapon is always a nice out for when you just got to make something happen.
And so now we're going to see a Fate Foreseen come in. Again, getting that block equity. So you have this defense reaction, but you were waiting until it was an attack for 4 because the others were 3. You don't want to lose anything there. Now we have, this is the Phoenix Flame coming in for 1, and I'm curious, once again, right? I'm kind of shocked. Yesterday, when we saw this Azalea player play against Briar, they were doing a great job of blocking the incoming damage. They played it like a very mid-range deck, and now this is the second time we've seen Azalea kind of take a lot from Phi, which tells me they probably have a really good hand, maybe some relevant on-hit effects, but we're going to have to wait and see what the end result is. I think that we're going to get the non-attack action that maybe get something out of the discard pile because the Azalea player is looking there. But looking in the arsenal there, I believe that's a Red in the Ledger, which is, again, one of the key cards in the matchup. That's like Azalea's version of Spinal Crush.
There we go. Starting it off again. Getting the job done. Azalea. Everybody's kind of got eyes on Azalea to see what she can actually do moving up against Worlds. Maybe this is a situation where people might give her another serious look to see how Levi performs here in this circumstance. I mean, in what kind of world would, or what kind of finish would Azalea need here for people to actually perhaps consider and put the time in ahead of Worlds? Worlds is 2 weeks away. So this is not necessarily, a situation where Azalea is going to change people's minds because they're like, oh, well, we got 6 weeks, so we can actually put some work in and figure it out and see if we like the hero or not. People are probably already, for the most part, locked in on like a 3-pack of heroes that they're considering. Do you think that if Azalea just cruises through this top 8 and wins this Battle Hardened, that people would actually consider investing time ahead of Worlds to give her a serious look?
I think if Azalea wins, then yes, people will absolutely give her a serious look. I think that even without a win, I think with the performance that she has had, or that this hero has had, you have to at least consider it in your testing. I think that is like the biggest win, the biggest takeaway from this. Brendan and I were talking about that yesterday. Levi's performance on Azalea in this field, I think, is enough for you as a player to say, okay, I have to know what I'm doing. Even if I'm not going to play Azalea, I have to know what I'm doing in that matchup now. Where before, I'll be honest, most folks were probably just ignoring Azalea, but this was, I believe, a remorseless, a lot of damage coming in. I saw the 10 there, and we got a huge block. The furnace got flipped over, so I think that was a series of 3 blocks followed up with the furnace as the final piece of equipment. So no damage done, and we're just going to have this 1-card hand now from the Phi player. Matt coming in. Does still have the card in the arsenal. So even though it's a 1-card hand, you could still threaten as much as, 6 or 7 here. If you've got like a Blaze, for example, in that arsenal, this could be devastating for Azalea, where if they throw a 10 attack red in the ledger, they get no damage in, and then Phi still presents, 6 or 7. That is a rough exchange.
Soulbeat Strike, Crucible of War card, a great card that kind of saw its day in the sun with Katsu and kind of, wandered off there and was under the radar and suddenly making another resurgence. Soulbeat Strike, there's 2 of here in terms of reds, 3 blues. It's a great card. I believe it blocks for 3 as well. It's a nice piece there, and on hit, it will get go again. So that's exactly what's going on here. Azalea, again, liking the card, but it seems like the go again is going to be moot here because what Matt wants to do here is preserve an arsenal, sit on 20 life, and just basically hope that the 4 cards that he drew up here are good enough to perhaps put Azalea to bed when this is all said and done. But there's still the Azalea turn that's got to go. There's a Nimblism in the hand. Trying to look at what else is there. It looks like a Searing Shot. Is that a Searing Shot? It's not a Searing Shot.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a Searing Shot. Because,
sorry, that's because that's not even in the deck.
Yeah, that's not in the list. But while you're perusing and trying to figure out what you think that is, I do want to highlight something, and that is the card for the Phi player is still in the arsenal. That was placed there after a turn where there was a long number of chain links. So if you didn't play it on the turn where you had a lot of chain links, and you didn't play it here when you had low cards in hand, what do you think that card in the arsenal is? What are you sitting on that you're waiting for the right opportunity if you're Matt?
I'm thinking it's an Art of War. That's kind of the the fuel that, or sort of like the supercharger for the big turn. And at 20 life, you can kind of sit back and maybe just tank a little bit of damage here. And if you have the right recipe, you can really spice it up by starting off with the Art of War. And we're talking about how these Phi turns they've been effective. They've actually pierced through and done damage, but they haven't been devastating. They're not those 25 to 30 damage, just overload type turns that can really put a game away. But with an Art of War, you can certainly get that to go. So I'm not sure what's in the arsenal, but my suspicion, like the worst thing that it could be, if you're Levi, is if that's an Art of War and you don't put this Phi player in a bad spot, then that can really change things.
So was a little bit difficult for me to see with the dice, but I'm pretty sure that's a Sleep Dart that we've got coming from Levi here. This is the card that essentially turns off hero effects and activated abilities. If it connects, obviously that was coming in for 10, but we see now a Sink Below coming in from Matt. So it turns out that was actually what was in the arsenal all along, and that is interesting that Phi decided to bring those in. I suppose against Azalea, if you're worried about Dominate, it makes sense. This is probably tech that you didn't include for Azalea. This is probably something you wanted for your Oldhim matchups, for your Bravo matchups, but because of the dangerous on-hit effects that Azalea brings, because of her ability to potentially dominate attacks, they came into the deck. They are on the list. They are, a great inclusion for certain matchups, but interesting that they made their way here.
Brad with Cinderclaw. 3 go again. Great opener for a 5 player, making your next Chainlink Draconic. We're also going to draw a card from the Ancestral Empowerment and give it +1. So it's now 4 go again. And look at that, just in response, why not? We're going to Sink Below that damage. You still get to draw the card here. So that part of the equation is still valid. as the Fi player here, Matt Moose is going to do his best to try to sort of get the Azalea player in an uncomfortable spot. Azalea, without cards in hand, is rather punchless. It's not like there's no one card play that you can make. Frankly, you need fuel to basically load the arrow, and then again you need the arrow as well. So, but the first order of business here is surviving this turn, and sinking that brand with Cinderclaw is a good start.
So the Ancestral Empowerment there, that's the second one we've seen, and as I look at Matt's list, there's only 2 there. And that is very relevant because there's no other attack reactions. So the kind of tricks available to Matt have slimmed down to just Art of War. So obviously Art of War being an instant, you can play your first attack and then kind of surprise it on. But if you were worried about some sort of like Fi on hit, whether that was like a mounting anger, a rising resentment, that sort of thing, you don't have to worry about that as much now if you're Levi, because all of the attack reactions are gone.
Blocking out full here, preserving that life total. 2 cards in hand for Levi. We're going to continue onward. So
all right, so this looks like it's a Lava Burst, but because there's no Rupture, it's just the 2 coming in. And then we're going to have the card go in the arsenal.
That's the second Lava Burst that didn't get the benefit of Rupture, and you got to think that Levi must be wondering, why that? What the hell's going on here? Why am I not extending this? You know, it's still chipping away. Again, the life totals are what they are. It's 14 to 11 in favor of Matt, but...
No, I think if you're Levi, you're saying, how did I get so lucky that I saw 2 Lava Bursts that were only worth 2? And we have the, like, snaps still on the table. Sometimes I'm on the unlucky end where I get that first Lava Burst and I think, okay, things are done, and then they snap and they hit me with a second one in the same turn, and instead Levi gets 2 that are only worth 2. That's got to be very welcome, and we see some discussion here, some non-attacks going on. I think that
well, it's a knock the death whistle, presenting you, shuffling up some cards here over again. When you're playing against a hero that you're not familiar with, you can guarantee that in any of the testing, Azalea was never one of those things where you're like, hey, buddy, can you play an Azalea against me? I just want to make sure that I got this set up.
Oh, so this is the Red in the Ledger. Again, big attack when you're playing against Fi. But the interesting bit here is that we also know the top card is another Red in the Ledger. So if you're somebody who is trying to navigate this matchup, this is the right time to hit these cards. You're, 11 health to 14, but if you can now have big turns while shutting down Fi's ability to come back. So again, if you're not familiar, Red in the Ledger makes it so that the player can only take essentially one action. They can only do one thing on their turn. It's not quite Spinal Crush because it doesn't strip go again, but it just straight up says that they can't play or activate more than one action during their turn. Now, it only has to do 1 damage to get that effect. It's not like Spinal where you need that kind of crush threshold.
Yeah, Spinal Crush sucks.
So this 8 damage is very relevant because we've seen the 5 player use a lot of 3 blocks already.
How much does that cost?
Well, it's a 1 for 5.
Okay, so yeah, it's who plays Spinal Crush? Like, if you wanna beat up on aggro, you play Red in the Ledger, cost 1. It doesn't need 4 damage to leak. It just does what it does. We've been looking at this game all wrong. Guardian players are garbage. Azalea is the truth. That's what I'm getting.
I think that's a bit extreme, but it is a bit surprising that we haven't seen more Azalea up until this point.
It hasn't been surprising because
it hasn't.
It's not been surprising at all.
I was trying to give her the.
I know you got to sort of hype it up. I get it. You got to pump her tires a little bit because she is in the quarterfinals of a Battle Hardened, and I mean through a gauntlet of really good players as well,
and looking like it might be in a great position. So Levi has piloted Azalea very well every time that we've seen Levi on the broadcast. So shout out to Levi for making this work, clearly put in the time and the effort. But also, like I said, great time to be hitting these Red in the Ledgers. If you can have these kind of clutch turns when your opponent is, sub 20, right now sub 15 in terms of the health totals, this is huge. And so if you're the Fi player and you know that you're only going to be able to take one action, you're probably okay with blocking this. I think the one thing that Levi, I think, missed out on is the ability to give this dominate, because that would have been just crushing in this situation. But you really set yourself up for success with this kind of like double red in the ledger situation.
You know, come to think of it, like based off of the Azalea ability of gaining dominate and such, it's kind of it's curious that cards like Seek Horizon are not in like lists like this. Like 4 go-agains that put a card on top, you can activate your Azalea ability. So you put and then give that arrow dominate. Just theory crafting while we're watching here.
All right, so we saw a big block, right? He ate 3 cards. So the on-hit doesn't go through, but this player is likely only taking 1 action, so it's kind of like the successful attack you were looking for. The problem, though, is you didn't generate pressure on the health total. And so you're hoping that you don't have to lose too many cards on the crackback from Fi here so that you can set up that second red in the ledger. If the Fi player can somehow navigate this and survive the second red in the ledger, I think that there's going to be an opening for Matt to maybe take control of this game. But right now it's just the Emberblade. We do have the 1 card in the arsenal, but this Emberblade does not have go again because it's the first attack. So we know this is just going to be a swing for 3 scenario.
Fatigue shot is what gets tossed away there, and ultimately it was an Art of War that was pitched away. So there was potentially a huge turn, and red in the ledger basically shut that down. So well timed for the Azalea player here to play that red in the ledger, knowing that there was, not knowing that there was an Art of War in hand, but ultimately that's what was pitched away, and likely never to be seen again, as these 2 players are not necessarily playing decks that will see second cycles for the most part. When you're aggressive like this and against another aggressive list, it's going to get nitty, it's going to get gritty, but it's not going to take long is at the end here. But Bullseye Bracers get clipped here to load up a Bolton shot that got go again. We're going to go ahead and load another arrow. That's the other red in the ledger. We're going to look at the top card, draw the top card from the Death Dealer. 5, no dominate, no go again, no nothing, but a nasty on-hit effect. And still some equipment, though, that you can toss in front of this.
Yeah, if you've got a good hand as the Fi player and you can sacrifice, say, like a 3 block and maybe the Shuko, then this ends up being a great win for you. But if you are stuck with one of those hands that Fi sometimes get, where you've got a bunch of the 2 blocks, then the breakpoints make this a little bit awkward. We're going to have to wait and see how it plays out. But I'll be honest, I was expecting a bigger turn from Levi here, and the fact that this second red in the ledger is only for 5. He didn't have any of the non-attacks to pump it up, didn't have a consistent way to ensure that it got dominate. That's unfortunately going to be a pretty big deal here.
11-10 in favor of Azalea. Everybody's favorite hero. 5 attack being presented by red in the ledger. Nasty little attack to sort of send towards a 5 player. Don't want to see that. So there's the Shuko, like you said. Probably going to couple this up with a casual 3 block.
Oh, it's a sink. So that's interesting because it's a little bit of an overblock, but it doesn't matter, right? If you just want to keep the 1 card as your block choice, right? You're trying to keep yourself to only using 1 card. Sink is the one you want to give up. You can't attack with the sink, obviously. Well, I mean, you could if you're the Hulk or something. You
sure.
Swing a kitchen sink at somebody, but you can't attack with the sink, so you want to give that up, but you still have to sacrifice the equipment. I'm expecting a big turn from Matt here, and as excited as I was for Levi, I felt like with that double red in the ledger situation, they were going to put themselves in a good position. Now it's looking awful because this is going to be a pop-off turn for Matt.
Yeah, and the other aspect of this is that we've never seen that mask be threatened. The combat chain never really got too extended, ending turns with, third link lava bursts with no go again, and that mask is just kind of sitting there and wondering when it's going to actually be a player here. But ultimately, this looks like the turn where Matt is going to finally start making those true Fi turns, those go wide, those 5, 6, 7 combat chain links. And starting with a 3 go again, a 4 go again gets met with a Fate Foreseen.
Oh, this is a huge snatch.
It is, and again, like you said, those snappies are still just sitting pretty, waiting to connect with this, to link up with this snatch. 4 on hit, draw a card. This is the kind of stuff that Fi wants to do.
Yeah, if this connects, and I think Levi knows it, then there's going to be a really big problem. But thankfully, Levi has the Sink Below in the arsenal, so that's going to be a nice clean block for the 4. With no cards in hand, you don't have to worry about that being like a surprise Art of War. Plus, I would have expected that to come out if it was an Art of War anyway from the arsenal. We know that the 2 Ancestrals are gone, so you don't have to worry about those as well. So you survive that turn. This is like a nitty-gritty back and forth, both players 10 health or less. This is my favorite part of Flesh and Blood because the decisions get harder, right? Your game plan not nearly as linear. And if you're the 5 player, it's the part you like the least because that means you have to start blocking, and that's not something that Fi likes to do.
There's always a threat. Matt's running a single red Razor Reflex, and that snatch may have been a good target for it, but blocking it out and not over-blocking, let's say, is perfectly fine as well. And I think that if that snatch was going to connect, you can probably assume that it was going to get a lot greasier for that turn, but ultimately we did get that shut down. And here's the follow-up, which is 5 go again.
Yeah, the Razor Reflex, there is one in the list, but with no cards in hand and no floating pitch, it wasn't a concern at the moment. But nonetheless, again, big 5 attack with go again. I believe there's still 1 card left in Levi's hand, so the go again could potentially be relevant. But I suspect that's going to end up going into the arsenal unless something crazy happens here. I would not be shocked if the 5 player just says, it's okay to take this.
Very, very tense moments here. In fact, you can say that they're increasing the tension.
Yeah, and when the game ends, they will release the tension, but it's funny, you mentioned earlier that the mask hasn't been super threatening for Matt, but you could almost say the same thing that for Levi, it's kind of surprising that they never got into a situation where they forced the 5 player to even consider blocking with the mask. We haven't seen much dominate from this Azalea. The equipment did eventually get used, but for the most part, it's just been blocks from hand whenever the threatening on hits has come from Levi. And that was not something that I was expecting. But now it looks like we're going to give up that mask that has been mostly ineffective and then also have the Sink come through. So, again, you can't attack with Sink, so you might as well block this out and then come back with a 3-card hand and whatever that is in the arsenal. That's, again, a card that's been there for a long time.
All right, so Brand with Cinderclaw again, opening things up. 3 go again. Azalea now at 8 health. Levi just approaching the danger zone, and 8 health can evaporate in a heartbeat against a Fi when there's so many tools to just kind of chip away at it. And they're going to Art of War on top of this, so Matt's going to finally find that Art of War turn. It's going to be +1 on the attack values, banish a card, draw 2, refill some of the fuel there, 2 floating. So looks like unless he drew completely dead here, there's going to be some nastiness that's going to follow this up. But taking the damage, going down to 4 here. We're going to follow this up with the Searing Emberblade with the 2 float. So 3 go again, following this up.
Yeah, this is not what Levi wanted to see because you're already down. Now you're down to 4. This Art of War buffing, all of the attack actions that are going to be coming throughout the rest of the turn. Even if you can survive this, because you do still have some equipment. We're going to see that get used here. You do still have, your handful of cards, and you have something in the arsenal. But even if you do survive this, you're probably not going to have the kind of hand you were hoping for to put this pressure back on Fi. This is, I think, the kind of turn where the entire game is just going to swing. And so here we see, I think that's a blue. It's kind of hard to see with the glare, but that's why it's only an attack for 2 here.
And we also get a 2 value Phoenix Flame. So slowly chipping away. This isn't lethal. There's no float, 1 card left, so there's no Razor Reflex to be threatened by. But what if that's the 3rd Lava Burst?
It could be that, or there is a 1 of Salt the Wound, and we've got a decent number of chain links here, so...
But they have to hit, I believe, for Salt the Wound. So only 2 chain links.
Two have hit so far, so...
Well, one's sort of waiting to be resolved here. There's still the 2 from the Phoenix Flame that hasn't gone through yet. It was just the first brand with Cinderclaw that actually connected.
Yeah, I guess I had preemptively assumed that they were going to be taking the damage from this. Yeah,
there you go.
With 2, and no, it's a Snatch. And even though the draw from this can't continue the turn, being able to get any damage in here and then also set up an arsenal would be devastating. So yeah, that's going to get fully blocked out.
No problems there, though. Again, that's the scary turn. And did put work in. I mean, I think 6 damage leaked through. It's pretty nasty. But Azalea might be up against it here. There's still 2 cards and 1 in Arsenal. You still got options here, and you got Tunic mana resource. So that's still available to you. And we're at a point here where there is no more equipment. So there's that's what Ravenous Rabble wants to find. It's a red card on top. Again, Diet Opt. Can't believe it's not Opt. Going with the Forgo again off of Ravenous Rabble. And, I mean, Matt's got some life to play with here. But if you don't respect this damage, you could basically just pile on in a hurry, and you don't want to face some kind of massive dominated arrow that can ruin your day.
Yeah, it's interesting because on the one hand, you don't want to get too low if you're worried about dominate, but on the other, you have some health to play with, and you really only care about on-hit effects. You would hate to use, 1 to 2 cards to try to block any of this, and then have a scary on-hit follow-up that you're forced to block as well. So I would not be shocked if we see Matt just end up taking this 4, saying, okay, until you present something that has like actual text on it, right? If it touches me, it's going to do something, then I'll worry. But if I could go into this next turn with, 3 cards, potentially 4 cards, that's more worth it to me. So you're right. You have to respect the damage, but I think that the follow-up potential of a scary on-hit is maybe more worth it. But we do see at least 1 blocked here, so also it's entirely possible that it's just a rough hand for the 5-player. And so now we have another Ravenous Rabble. Turns out Azalea just redline aggro.
Why not? I mean, look at that list. It's 51 red cards in this list. It's massive amounts of red versus 23 blue and yellow. So you're heavily leaned, almost 2-1 in favor of red. So you've got a 66% chance of just sniping those reds. And ultimately, I think all that bad mojo of finding blues is gone. Ravenous Rabble is a sure thing right now. And 4-go again into 4-go again. We're going to dump that flying kick. Don't need it. Don't want it. It's because it costs stuff. So that's not where you want to be. I think it's a situation right now where you just need to survive, right? And, I mean, if that's a free arrow... okay. So if that's a free arrow... I mean, you can use your resource, you could load it, you could fire it, but also, what's on top of the deck there? That's a card that I'm trying to figure out. Again, as I apologize for my ignorance in terms of all the Azalea cards, and I'm sure you at home there's somebody out there who's yelling at me saying, "You doofus! How could you not know it's XYZ?" Well, I'm sorry. We're doing our best here, but ultimately, what we do know is that there's 4-go again. That's just waiting to be resolved here as the Matmoose on Phi is just waiting.
There is a bit of a glare, but I wanted to confirm. It looks like that's a red read the glide path. So
right.
That is the non-attack action that is a +3. Also allows them to opt and...
Gotcha. Okay. So there's going to be what I was wondering is if that was an arrow, what you could do here is you can... use your Tunic resource to load your bow. Use Azalea to put, if that was an arrow, put it in.
If it's a free arrow, then you could load it, and then the dealer would draw the read, and then you could just break the chain and play the read.
Right,
and
right.
it does look like that's what's going to happen. So we're going to get the +3 into the bolt. Now, technically, this would also give it go again, but that part's not going to be relevant with no more resources left. But yes, just what I was getting ready to say. We get the free arrow because you can just break the chain. You get to buff it. So a huge 7 damage attack. So no relevant on hits, but this is a turn where you have presented 4 and then 4 and then 7, so a quality 15 damage turn from Azalea. This will get some cards out of Fi. It's threatening lethal, and that is, you know, the right, I guess, on hit to threaten, right, is just straight lethal.
As we're here trying to find the resolution to this, we just find out that Beyonce walked into the studio, apparently. In the name of, actually, it's Elaine Hammondtree, but she's alive, ladies and gentlemen. The Phoenix rises. There she is. Maybe we'll get her on camera.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, well, don't worry. We'll let her sit in the back with the Cheetos. So 7, go again. Again, like you mentioned, the go again is kind of a moot point at this juncture, but it's still 7. That's good enough for lethal. You got to block at least 3 of this.
Yeah, and if this is one of those situations where the Fi player doesn't have a 3 block in hand, then you're getting 2 cards, and that would be massive for Levi. I love how back and forth this game has been since the players hit like sub 20 health. There's been multiple times where I thought, okay, Matt's got this locked up. Wait, maybe Levi's going to come back, you know, with those double red in the ledgers. Okay, Matt survived the double red in the ledgers. He's in control. This has been a very swingy game. And it's the sort of game that you just love to see if you love Fab.
Making the decision right now, and like you said, if you're just gooned with 2 blocks, it's going to be ugly. No, there's a Soul Beat Strike in there as well, so just going to block out 6 here and take 1, preserving the life total. I think you're just kind of respecting a potential dominated arrow. But again, 5 players, when your opponent's at 2, you should be able to get there, even with 3 cards. But it seems right now that Blaze Headlong for 4 is what's being thrown out here. This is a great spot to be in if you're Azalea, because this doesn't have go again. There's no equipment to worry about. There's no cards to worry about. So you throw a 3 block at this, and you're good to go. And I see an E strike in the hand there. It's kind of tucked away. Levi is holding on to an E strike. And to the defense reaction, so that all you got, plus the tunic's gone. The tunic is basically, wasted space at this point. It's never going to get that tunic resource all the way up to 3, no 3 counters. We're going to go ahead and pitch another that all you got. So a lot of defense reactions in the hand there.
Yeah, but that looks like a Remorseless that popped up, and we're going to have the E strike coming in as well, and then because this is going to have go again, that Remorseless is also devastating, because if that even touches the 5 player, it means that they are going to be forced to take most of their turn off, because the damage that would be threatened would be crucial when you're at 4 health. So first you have to deal with this Enlightened Strike, and 5, again, kind of an awkward break point, because if you've got a 3 block in your hand, you kind of want to save that for that Remorseless that you know is coming. So if you don't have multiple 3 blocks, this Enlightened Strike is troublesome. Like this is a great turn for Levi. We wait with bated breath to see how this is going to go. It looks like there might be another Soul Bead in hand, so that's at least 1 3 block to consider.
Enlightened Strike representing 5 with go again here. Levi presenting a very, very uncomfortable attack here, knowing that there's more to be had here. This is just the start of the movie, and it doesn't have a happy ending if it doesn't get respected by Matt here. Fi looking down, the barrel of potentially the end game, but Levi at 2, you'd think that as the 5 player, you're just licking your chops here, thinking that this is a juicy spot to be in, but we're going to go ahead and throw 3 in front of this.
Yeah, and then this has to be fully blocked out, and so that's what's going to happen there. If you're the 5 player, you were really hoping that there was a situation where you could come into this with like a 2-card hand. Instead, we're just going to see the Ember Blade swung. This will likely eat 1 card from Azalea. There are so many 3 blocks in that deck, and so again, Levi will go into the next round with a 3-card hand, which is pretty dangerous. But there is the potential to run into those defense reactions. You know, I thought the turn prior that we were going to see a little bit more threat from Levi, but we saw multiple that all you got. Curious to know what they were looking for when he asked to see the discard pile there. Might have just been checking for ancestrals or things like that, but again, no cards in the hand of Matt, so
doing a little Levi there doing a little shadow boxing before he actually committed the blocks. And we're going to go ahead and load an arrow there with Death Dealer. It's going to draw off the top.
And that looks like a sleep dart. And so then we are going to play the non-attack that also lets you put something on top. They're going to put that Remorseless there.
Oh,
and then
you
they're going
could
to activate Azalea
that.
to dominate it. And this is likely it because there's no arsenal.
Well, there might be a sink below, but there is
even if there was a
not.
sink, you're taking your turn off, et cetera, et cetera. So Levi does end up getting the victory. That was such a back and forth game. Again, when they got to sub 20 health, I kept saying, all right, I really feel like Matt has it. No, I think Levi has it. No, Matt's coming back. Just well executed by both players, but we're seeing why this Azalea has made it to the top 8 because ultimately the on hits and the dominate were enough to push through the Phi matchup, and Levi is moving on to the semifinals.
No, excellent, and you're spot on in terms of just kind of how that match felt, where you did not know who was going to win because it was kind of like whoever was holding onto the ball was going to make the final basket, and it just didn't happen that way, as there was a lot of swings and misses, but good blocking on both sides, but excellent play, very effective, very methodical. Very calculated play by Azalea, and this is what you need to succeed with these heroes that kind of fly under the radar that are not necessarily as powerful or as straightforward, let's say, as like an Oldham or a Phi or whatnot. These are heroes that take a lot of finesse to pull off, and we saw a little bit of, all right, check the top, do this, slide this under the door, find the key under the rock, and there we go. We got to where we need to be, and that's kind of where Azalea is, and now Azalea is in the semifinals.
That is not something that I was expecting to say today.
Nope. Not at all. You know what else I wasn't expecting to say to hear this weekend was you got to sit in the back because there's a pizza box in the passenger seat. That also happened.
Yeah, that also happened because it turns out Cheetos are just more important than you and I.
Yeah,
together.
why? We're just two sentient beings just trying to get to where we're going, but that's where we're at. And you know where you're at? You're at the Battle Hardened in Columbus, and the semifinals are coming up shortly. Friends, don't go too far. Flake and Charmer, Brendan, Patrick, we'll be right back. The elongated break there, frankly, there was a battle between Brody and Noah that took eons, frankly, as both players had to go into their collections and dig out fresh cards because 60 was not enough.
Yep, it went to the infamous game state of Fatouige.
Fatouige.
I like to call it. Flake, we have a pretty interesting match coming up. A couple of heroes I did not expect to make top 8 at all, actually. It's Azalea versus Dramai. Dramai having success despite a 5 field and playing Briar last round, and then Azalea having success despite pretty much everything in the universe somehow. I don't know how the Dramai matchup goes. I'm assuming it's better than Oldhim, so while it's not a perfect pairing, probably would have preferred to play Brody on that Briar. Still, I believe that the Oldhim in the top 8 has been knocked out, so Azalea is actually better positioned than...
Where have you ever said that in your life?
Yeah, that's
I mean, better positioned, sure. Like, we can say that. It's like, okay, like I only have 1 gunshot wound instead of 7. That's a better life state for me. But frankly, when you're saying better positioned, is Azalea a threat to actually win?
Yeah, it's actually a threat to win. I would like to point out as well that Josh Lau, I saw the standings yesterday, and on Bolton Sabres, he just missed on top 8, on breakers. So these are 2 borderline unplayable decks in my humble professional expert opinion, and somehow they're performing super well. I think it's more of a testament to how Flesh and Blood is, how much it's sort of we see the consistent type of players rise to the top, right? Multiple top 8 sort of back to back. I think that, this game is something that you can put time into, practice, and sort of have consistent results, and that's what a lot of us enjoy. And Azalea is, I guess, a perfect example of that.
I feel yeah. You know what I like is that doesn't this kind of look like we're doing a press conference after like a sporting some sort of like sports match, like a hockey game? I just feel like I'm just taking questions from the press right here. I'd be like, yeah, well, just got to give it a good 60 minutes, put the puck deep, just keep the legs moving, stay out of the penalty box, and that's it. Just play a solid 60 minutes.
Just recounting your night last night, you're just like, well, they had us in the first half, not going to lie.
Yeah, no, definitely had us in the first half and in the second half as well. Some people are still kind of emerging from their cocoons just to get going. But yeah, we do have the semifinals. It is going to be Noah Clark on Dromai versus Levi Rauch on Azalea. The players are just kind of getting squared away. Again, there was a long match that needed to get resolved, but it did get resolved. And there you can see the both players have the deck list that they can review is what they're doing. They're checking the notes. And again, there's going to be a lot of like, what the hell does this card do? For example, read the glide path. What the hell is read the glide path?
Yep, invoke Tameltoe or whatever it's called.
I won't even go anywhere near that. Not a clue. But
yeah. Dromai versus Azalea, seriously, cards that we don't see played competitively all too much. Dromai did see a lot of popularity, at least early in the Uprising format, but was sort of quickly run out by a lot of the aggro decks, mostly due to Fi. Fi is still the most popular deck and probably, in a lot of people's opinions, the most powerful deck. But Dromai is, this Dromai player in particular, and some of the other players I've spoken to, at least at this tournament, claim that matchup is actually not as bad as we all think, and obviously making top 8 in a field of this many Fis, they sort of back up that statement. Azalea, on the other hand, I probably wouldn't have put Azalea past round 1, but here we are in the semifinals.
Azalea is typically you pair up against this early on in these Swiss rounds, and you're like, all right, I guess we're scoring a win early, and here it is surprising. Levi's done an excellent job, kind of dotting the I's and crossing the T's when it comes to the meticulous way that you have to play Azalea to find the damage. As you and I, we cast that Lexi match where it was like, okay, so much bark but no bite, a lot of cards to be played just to get to like 7 or 8 attack, and here's Azalea finding, again, nifty ways to generate offense and create dominate effects to actually convert on those on-hit effects.
What's funny is that I actually was genuinely extremely surprised that Azalea won the last match when I looked at the board state 4 or 5 turns before the end of the game. And I think a lot of it can actually be attributed to the sort of mid-range build, and it's the inclusion of defense reactions in 0 for 4s. We saw those used extremely effectively. Being able to trade on value as Azalea is pretty much the antithesis of what the deck has done in the past, but adding these generic cards is allowing it to sort of survive through these 5 turns and sort of crack back with its own game plan and the on-hit triggers with the arrows.
Both players getting the sideboarding duties done, and like I mentioned in the previous match, this is not a match where somebody is saying, okay, I need reps against Azalea. I got to be prepared. I got to know what the hell's going on, because if I'm not completely squared away on what Azalea can do, then I'm going to be caught flat-footed. I'm going to be caught with my pants down, and we can't have that. So ultimately, you're kind of relying in these kinds of matchups that you're not familiar with just kind of your own game plan. When you don't know what's being thrown at you, you got to lean on your own strengths. And in terms of Dromai, we're going to see a lot of dragons. We're going to see a lot of constant pressure. And one thing that Noah does very well is protect those important dragons. You're going to have a lot of insulation around cards like Miragai, and then when bigger cards like Kyloria, Chromai, when those guys hit the board, then it becomes dangerous.
Yeah, so if we're evaluating this match on pure theory, I would say that it's probably a pretty bad matchup for Azalea, mostly due to Azalea not having access to a weapon that can pop dragons. Same reason why Dromai is a pretty bad matchup for Wizards. Wizards do have the additional downside of their attacks literally not being able to go towards the dragons at all, looking at Kano, but Icelander does solve that, and still a pretty bad matchup. Azalea's going to suffer from the same things. Arrows are going to have to be thrown at dragons. We could see a alternative strategy be employed where the Azalea tries to go over the top. Could absolutely see that happening because the Azalea does have access to the evasion via Dominate. And those on-hit triggers are going to be relevant. Red in the Ledger is a serious trigger to present to a Dromai player. While it's a tough matchup, I think that Levi is going to be sort of our subject matter expert in how to navigate this as an Azalea player.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, you got to rely on the player who's actually piloting the deck successfully. I'm like, we're going to trust your judgment here because we don't know what the hell we're talking about when it comes to Azalea. It's not like we're out there saying, well, I jammed like 50 games yesterday on Azalea. No, that's not the case. We're as much a student of this player on this hero as, Noah is perhaps. And you got to be sure that Noah's kind of reviewed the tapes. But again, at what point does Azalea actually get the respect that maybe she's starting to deserve because players like Levi are taking her almost to the finish line. We're in the semifinals of the Battle Hardened here in Columbus, and Azalea is still standing tall and making it look easy in certain cases. Obviously, it's not, but it's only getting harder, and Azalea's still got to have an ace up her sleeve in order to, pull off a win against the Dragon Horde.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's going to be a lot of competitive players out there looking towards Worlds that are going to, maybe view the current results of this tournament as sort of a fluke. We see both Dramai and Azalea in the top 8, but I think that is pure hubris, to be honest. This is a field of world-class players, and these decks have risen to the top sort of by going through the fire. This Azalea player has played against multiple Oldhams, has played against their bad matchups. The Dramai player has played against Fis. These are decks that they haven't really formatted their way to the top 8. They have they've seen a diverse field and seen success through that as well.
So both players just getting squared away here, shuffling the deck one last time. The sideboarding has been done. The players both 40 life total, and again, Azalea versus Dromai. Who would have guessed it? It seems like every time that there's a new tournament, there's a new, there's like a new meta that develops. Obviously, there's the favorites, but the top 8s have always seemed quite unique from tournament to tournament. Like there's a nice spread of heroes. It's not like, we had the Pro Tour in Lille where the semifinals was just basically 4 Briars, but that's not the case anymore. It seems like there's a decent spread.
Yeah, the Uprising Classic Constructed meta has been an absolute roller coaster from like a competitive player standpoint. It's very good and bad. I mean, it's good because it's fun and interesting, but it's bad in the sense it's very hard to predict these metas. We saw the first tournaments after Pro Tour Lille look to be pure control. We saw no Briars, literally no aggressive decks, just Icelander and Oldham. We thought that was going to be the format. Dromai started to creep in, and then boom, the Fi comes back. People start appreciating Briar a bit more, and it looks like it might be an aggro format. Coming into this weekend, I thought it would be sort of mono Fi. I thought that this would be an aggro-dominated top 8. And while there is less control decks or less slower decks in this top 8, it's not just Fi. It's actually mid-range decks that are making it. I would consider Dramai to be a mid-range deck. I would consider Azalea to be a mid-range deck. And so, yeah, this format has evolved pretty drastically week to week, and it's tough. Like if you're looking to play in San Jose at Worlds here, what do you target?
It's tough. I mean, that's what people are paying attention to this tournament for too, is to kind of get like the last snapshot, and it's really difficult because if you go into Worlds, your knowledge is based on the last major tournament. That's the data that you're basically processing. That's what you're basing your game plan on. But when you show up, everybody's teching and having different opinions about how to actually approach that meta. And then suddenly that meta is old news and everything's different. Like I've said this before, you don't go to tournaments with the best deck. You go to tournaments with the best deck last week.
Yeah. So you asked as well as like, are people going to be sort of respecting Azalea after this tournament? I think especially due to the coverage Azalea has gotten on this tournament, you can see through these matches that they're not sort of, I don't know. Maybe if there was no coverage, you could be, yes, it was luck based, or it was like they got their good matchups. I mean, Azalea, by the way, before this tournament had no good matchups, so that would be a weird statement. But yeah, you need to respect Azalea, I think, going into Worlds, especially if you're considering a deck like Fi or Briar. Like this deck seems to. I mean, we watched Levi here absolutely destroy Brody Spurlock on that Briar. I mean, it just absolutely dismantled everything that his Briar deck was trying to do. The last thing you want to do is bring a deck like Fi, bring a deck like Briar, and then start running into a field of maybe 5 to 10% Azaleas in the Classic Constructed meta. It could be absolutely miserable if you're not prepared and understand that matchup.
All right, so it's been quite the lead up. Yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure we've randomized this, gentlemen. So we're waiting on the players to finally present equipment. Even we're working on it. They're just making sure that there's absolutely no 2 cards the same that are touching. That's what we want to see here. So, again, it's going to be Dromai versus Azalea. Levi Rauch versus Noah Clark.
Yep, just greasing up the sleeves here. Yeah, I saw a few cards that were taken out. I think in the Azalea side, I might have saw a few defense reactions that were taken out. I'm not sure if the increased the tensions were added, but I did see them in the sort of sideboard beforehand.
Oh, we're releasing them, baby.
Is it release? Okay,
It is, it's full release.
it's pretty tough. Apparent Charmer says that there's cards called increase the tension and release the tension. Both cards I've never seen in my entire Flesh and Blood career, so allegedly. But yeah, going to cut the decks, so we're going to see the armor revealed here. That's a Snapdragon Sailors instead of a Perch Grapplers. Alludes that he is going to be on an aggressive game plan here, I believe, or maybe popping those aggressively to clear dragons sort of on a critical turn, whether that's clearing 2 mirror guys, to clearing a mirror guy and a Chromai, maybe like an Invoke Dominia or something like that represents a lot of damage. But Snapdragon Scalers is sort of a atypical piece of boots on the stream, at least. That's some good turn 0 equity there. Everybody loves that Sigil of Solace on turn 0.
Hey, let's just extend the game anyways. Let's go ahead and drop the Sigil of Solace right now. And again, a lot of strategy on this turn 0 is just to give non-interactive developments that your opponent cannot necessarily filter their hand and get rid of the garbage. Those are some beautiful Ash tokens. Once again, those Ash tokens are done by Mara of Blackwing Studios, and she's out there selling some of her wonderful art and her altars. You can take a look at Mara and Mara's work if you want to go take a look. She's just, you can always reach out to her on Twitter and at Blackwing Studios, or reach out to her on email at blackwingaltars@gmail.com.
So last time we saw Dramai on stream, we saw the Dramai player pop Mage Master Boots on turn 0. Dramai was on the play, so did not pop those Mage Master Boots. What that tells us is that they're likely playing the Toma Fiendal in this list. We see double Seek and Destroy with a Remorseless coming out. So this is a very big Remorseless, also using one of the most significant non-attack action pumps in the deck, and in my opinion, the most, which is Seek and Destroy, which has an odd hit trigger of basically blowing up your opponent's arsenal, quote-unquote blowing up, but preventing them from arsenaling on the following turn. This is not dominated, so I could kind of expect a sort of a hand drop here to block as much as possible, but we'll see what the Dramai player has in mind. I see Pursuit of Knowledge in the Dramai's hand, by the way.
Hey, there's that card you're talking about. Again, there's a 4-for-2 blue on hit. Increase that intellect, baby.
Yep.
Go to school. Learn.
When that card first came out, that was sort of the new pummel target, everybody thought, but ultimately did make the cut. Yeah. Remorseless, pretty relevant, honestly, against Dramai. Loss of life every time you're activating an action. I'm not sure if that counts towards the allies. No, it doesn't count towards Dash's gun. Yeah, it's not my strong suit when we're talking about a card from Arcane Rising and an unplayed hero against a new hero that is ally based.
New cards. These are your dynasty spoilers, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I mean,
there you go.
Azalea might as well be new cards at this point.
So 11's still on the hook over here as Noah Clark is kind of just thinking about it. You know, how do you want to block here? Do you want to take damage? Do you want to develop the game plan? And ultimately, he's going to leak some through here, present a 3-block, and go all the way down to 35.
Yeah. So yeah, we didn't see the entire hand block there, so the Remorseless trigger will be active. Noah could potentially lose some life here. Noah's going to have access I'm also kind of, I'm guessing here, but I do think that Noah will have access to quite a bit of life gain since the Mage Master Boots were not pumped, and we can expect to see Toma Fiendal, which will likely be coupled with Chromai, as well as 2 more Sigil of Solaces left in the deck at least.
That is a Yendurai with an endurance counter on top of it. It's a 3-attack dragon, but the first instance damage is going to get nullified by the kind of shielding effect. But there is my cousin Vinny.
That's a really bad one, to be honest. Vincerica is probably one of the ones you want to see the least. Vincerica has an on-hit trigger of doing 3 more damage, so representing 9 on a no blocks. Yendurai is also reasonably annoying, but Yendurai doesn't attack for too much damage. You can kind of ignore it. Vincerica, on the other hand, unfortunately cannot. I do not believe that Azalea will have any poppers in this matchup, so it's going to have to deal with all of the dragons the hard way. I see 1 Enlightened Strike currently in hand. I can only imagine that Enlightened Strike will clear the Vincerica. Yeah, I just don't think in this matchup as Azalea at this point in the game you can leave Vincerica up.
So that's the other question here is if you're looking through Azalea's list as they did prior to this, they're looking through the list and seeing that there's pretty much no poppers, if not like almost none. Are you just taking out your passing mirages and your mirror guys?
You could. I'm not 100% sure if you take out Mirror Guy just because maybe the density of dragons. Passing Mirage, I would expect that to be taken out unless there's some reason to justify that blue count. Yeah, so I think we're going to see the Bolton shot here at the Vincerakai, and, Levi opting to take all of the damage, which I think starts to allude towards his game plan where I don't think this is going to be a mid-range matchup where he's necessarily clearing dragons for value. He might clear the Vincerakai with the Bolton shot because it does just make sense. It's a blue Bolton shot. We have an arsenal there. But I think that if, our Dramai player lands a Kromai or honestly like a Mirror Guy or something like that, high-value dragons they are. I don't think we'll see our Azalea actually kill them. I think he's going to be going face here and look for evasion in the later part of the game to sort of close it out.
That is 8 go again off of the E-Strike on the back of a Nimblism, and it's directed, straight shot overnight to Dromai's face, and Noah here going to see how he's going to deal with it as he's going to present a 3-block to it. Sure, no problem. So 5's going to leak through. It's even Steven at 28, and we're finishing this up with more arrow action.
Wow, at the Ender Eye, that's actually really surprising to me. I wonder why that... Okay, so he sends out the Ender Eye, which only takes the endurance counter. Okay, yeah, okay. I was like, that makes absolutely no sense. I was like, that is like that. I couldn't imagine a world where that would just not be objectively wrong. So yeah, clears the Vincerakai there. I imagine our Dramai player is just our Azalea player is just going to leave this Ender Eye for the entire game. It is very inconvenient to clear. You do need to attack it for 6 or attack it twice. At that, Command & Conquer, obviously one of the most relevant and significant cards. Take Aim and Bolton Shot in hand. I cannot remember exactly, but I do not believe both of those block for 3. The Nimblism definitely doesn't. So
yeah, Nimblism's a 2-block. All those non-attack actions typically are 2 blocks. And if there's one card that really busts up a Ranger's plans, it's going to be that one right there. It's Command & Conquer pitching 2 reds, and again, just generating that pile of ash, which is so crucial to summon those dragons, to invoke all of your horde of dragons. As you need that pile of ash. So ash economy is going to be on Noah's mind, but again, the dude's a pro. He's in the semifinals, and look at this, just gonna eat it. There's another Nimblism in there as well, so we're gonna drop down to 22. Command & Conquer does its job. And on the other side, Levi here, 4 cards in hand, ready to go nuts here as he's going to use his resource from Tunic.
Yeah, one of those cards was actually a That All You Got, so had a really tough time with that Command & Conquer. That being said, what I'm actually more interested was Noah's choice to play out the Command & Conquer because it could have been met by 2-3 blocks. In his case, it wasn't, so he did get quite a bit of value at it, but he did pitch both Kromai and Kailoya. I think Kailoya would be quite an effective card versus our Azalea player here. Kailoya threatening a on-hit of draw pretty consistently, and I do not think that our Azalea player can justify blowing that dragon up despite how devastating on-hit is. We are going to see Bolton Shot here for 12. It's a pretty big Bolton Shot. It will, as a result of being at 12, get go again. So yeah, it's on to the Dramai player to figure out how they're going to preserve their life total.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, like 12 is a slightly over the printed value of a Bolton Shot, but that's like... it's like 3 red ones put together. Ultimately, 12 go again is pretty good. It looks like just a stack of cards there. You just kind of beefing that bad boy up. 12 go again. Yendura just can do nothing but watch as all the damage is being directed straight to a Dragon Mama's face. And at 28, that almost slices you right in half.
Yeah, I think the Azalea player is on quite a clock to get the Dramide player down to a lower life total. It's not a game that Azalea can stand for a long duration with the dragons being developed and sort of the incremental permanent advantage that those dragons do represent. So yeah, we are going to 3-block it. I'm interested to see okay, That All You Got goes into Arsenal here off of Azalea.
And we're going to use the Azalea ability here to load up, but it was a Ravenous Rabble. You can still play it. It just doesn't get dominated because it's not an arrow.
Yeah, so I think that Levi considered throwing that at the Ender Eye for a sec. That's why we saw the hesitation, but I do agree with his choice here to go face.
Down to 21. A lot of work that was done here. That was a 16 damage turn from Azalea, and all Noah can do here is just basically donate the hand and swing back with the the dragon, that one being Yanduri for 3. And that's the beauty of having these cards kind of rest permanently on the board until they're addressed, because even if you don't have any cards to pitch, you can always at least swing with one dragon.
Yeah, based off that block, I do wonder if the card that went to Arsenal was the Toma Fjendal, to be honest. I'd be pretty interested to see that out of our Dramai player. We do see Sleep Dart play putt into the Arsenal, and we have 2 pumps in hand in the form of increased attention and the last Seek and Destroy.
There we go.
It's just going to get pitched.
Tension building on the board in the hand. We are in the semifinals. 8 damage coming Dromai's way.
Yeah, and defense reactions cannot be played to this. I don't know if it's this chain link or this turn. I'm assuming it's chain link with increased attention there. Dramai looks like they're opting to take the entire damage. I wonder if we're going to see Toma Fjendal out of Arsenal. We did keep a 4-card hand, so it could be representing a lot of life gain there. I think that would probably be the most high-value play that this Dramai player could make at this time, being at 13. I do see a little finger towards the Mage Master boots. They're going to get popped, and surely Toma Fjendal pitch, and surely another Toma Fjendal out of Arsenal.
Yeah.
There we go, and that's going to be a gain of 5 life, back up to 18.
Great play there, and again, good use of the Mage Master boots as well. Making sure that, hey, we can do this and get go again on the turn, fill up the hand, gain some life. Looking good there. You've got no resources floating, I don't believe.
Yep. Well, no resource floating because the Mage Master boots does have the big 5-card hand, though.
But hey, you gain 5 life and you have a 5-card hand. That's not a bad way to start off the turn. Now, no way to give the dragons go again yet. However, you can suspect that with that dragon density in this list, that you're likely to find one in the hand, and we're going to figure out how he wants to start this off. It looks like a Red Rake the Embers. We're going to be pitching a Necria to make that happen. Gain an Ash. Let's transform them all into little Ash Wings, and they all get go again as well.
That's pretty interesting. That's probably not the best for the Dramai player, to be honest. Like, those Ash Wings, having 0 Ash economy, I'm not sure if there's going to be an additional way to create Ash here on this turn. But, yeah, I mean, those are not very threatening for our Azalea player, who's probably just going to not be killing dragons and just taking the damage anyway. So you spent all of your Ash for effectively, 3 kind of recursive damage. But at the same time, I mean, we'll see what dragons kind of follow up after this. I think there was no significant ones in hand, unfortunately.
Now, Sweeping Blow should create an Ash, correct?
Sweeping Blow does create a Ash, yeah.
So he pitched the E-Strike and played Sweeping Blow, but only were showing 1 Ash. So I believe there should actually be 2 here. But Noah may have just kind of played a little too quickly and overlooked that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Potentially, I trust Noah's. I trust Noah more than I do myself, despite also like that being pretty face up. But I don't know. I think as soon as I say that, someone's be like, "Yeah, Sweeping Blow actually doesn't create an Ash."
Actually, it doesn't do anything. In fact, it's not even a Sweeping Blow at all.
Yeah.
So 3 Ash Wings on the board and a Yanduri, but it's action on Azalea now, representing 7. Go again, and that's, again, going to be really pressuring the life total. That 5 life gain, like, we're going to keep track of it because it's not just a 5 life gain. There was also the Sigil of Solace that kicked things off. So there's been 8 life gains. So Noah should be at 10 if it wasn't for the life gain, and we're going to see how that factors into this match.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a factor. Like I said, I think it was probably the highest value play he could draw right there. He did, opt to just keep his whole hand to gain that life, so took the damage sort of, not super necessarily, right? His hand wasn't he didn't present a lot of value, just created Ash Wings and didn't do much. I think if he didn't have the Toma Fjendal there, he would have opted to block and preserve a bit of life, but nonetheless, it's sort of a free roll when you do have that Mage Master Toma Fjendal turn.
Continuing onward. We are going to send a nice little 4-pack continuing. Again, Azalea, not the first thought in your mind when you're thinking of aggressive Ranger. Usually that's Lightning Lexi just going 3 or 4 wide on the back of something like an Art of War and a Rain Razors and things like that. Unfortunately, for Noah here, seeing that Rangers can do it different ways. It's not just one. There's more Rangers in the north that are going to be coming through here as... damage is being leaked through.
Kyloria. Yeah, so this Onshin trigger, unfortunately, is probably going to hit, and Kyloria is a hard dragon to deal with. This is why I questioned the initial play kind of a while back where Command & Conquer was played instead of playing Kyloria. I just think that Kyloria is just such a recursive threat for Azalea to deal with here. That being said, our Dramai player is at 14. This is looking pretty good for Azalea. I think this is actually a really critical turn cycle. Like if Noah dropped I don't know, if he had a very big turn here, it could have put Azalea in a bad spot. That being said, I think Kyloria is potentially manageable enough, and Levi here can create some big dominate arrows, hopefully with relevant on hit effects, things like Red in the Ledger or Remorseless, and potentially close out this game in 2 to 3 turn cycles.
Still on the hook here, Kyloria swooping in, representing 4 damage on hit, draw card. It would normally go ahead and kind of scoop one of the items, but there are no items on the board. This isn't a dash player, let's say. There's no energy potions or things kind of just fluttering about. No, this Kyloria is hunting for card draw, and you got to block this out. You got to figure out how. And no perch grapplers here, and no other way to really block that you are ready to give up. I mean, do you want to give up the skull, like the cross wraps here to maybe one card block this?
Probably not. Yeah. So Levi's just going to take the damage. And the reason why Kyloria is so scary on this kind of hand is just the follow-up after. It's like, does he draw another big dragon and then potentially I'm facing down like a significant amount of damage? Because the amount of damage being presented this turn is actually just 10. So Levi can kind of do the math and realize he's going to live at least for 2 more turn cycles with not blocking. But if Noah top decks another big dragon or has one in arsenal and finds the resources for it, that could really change things because we're down to 6.
Getting dangerous. Is this the end of the road potentially for Azalea? Noah Clark has done a masterful, a performance here to get to where he's at here in the semifinals, going through
Best case scenario.
Yeah, that's great. That is some good stuff there.
Yeah, best case scenario with the Vincerakai just being pitched. Unfortunately, a dud off the top off that Kyloria draw. You really can't ask for more as the Azalea player there. Like I said, it was a pretty risky play, and we are going to be looking at a potentially big Remorseless here. And yeah, that could be critical. We saw Remorseless really shut down Brody Spurlock in the Azalea versus Briar matchup at the end game there.
The board state looking pretty nefarious here. If you are Levi playing Azalea, you have to not only overcome the life deficit, but the board state deficit as well, as Kyloria, Yanduri, 3 Ashwings will always be there. And you're kind of at a juncture here where it's, do you start clearing these out? I feel like Kyloria is...
Definitely not. You're priced in at this point, like in for a penny, in for a pound with the Azalea player here. I'm assuming like he's really thinking about this opt. Okay, so he's going for the dominate. Okay, yeah. So I think that it's going to be, he has 2 E-strikes in hand. That's the key. Yeah. So this Bolton shot coming in, we're going to Snapdragon Scalar it, and surely it's going to be E-strike for 5, and then E-strike, I believe, for 7. So representing
not
16,
quite enough. I mean,
it's a good amount. He could have actually attacked with the. Oh, but we do load the headshot there. Okay, very interesting. Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of damage.
So I did get rid of the Kyloria here, but we're also going to move forward with an E-strike, most likely going the go again effect here for 5. Yeah, that looks like what it is. Again, sent straight to face overnight. Why not? And it looks like Noah's just kind of, all right, how many cards you got left? What is that in the arsenal? You got 1 left rocking and rolling. But once the board is relatively generated and established for the Dromai player, it usually takes just 1 card to get things going. Much like Prism just needed a yellow pitch to sort of rock and roll. And I think that Noah can kind of play a little bit more defensively here. But again, if you find the right recipe, if that hand looks really juicy, you can just send it as there's the headshot on the back of a read the glide path.
So really interesting play line by Levi here. Was presented with a ton of options as the Azalea player did have the Remorseless and Arsenal. Could have done E-strike, E-strike go again, E-strike go again. Or actually E-strike go again, E-strike for 7, Snapdragon Scalars, then Tunic Remorseless to face. This is like, I think that the play turned out pretty well because the headshot ended up in Arsenal. But you see our Dromai player at 4. That is the amount of damage that was presented at the Kyloria, right? So did avoid lethal there. Would have had armor to deal with it, and of course the Sigil Assaults. But a critical line taken by our Azalea player. And yeah, I mean, I think that was probably the most important play of the game.
Sneaking in with the Sigil Assaults at instant speed to make sure that the criteria for go again on those dragons is met. And Noah doing some quick counting there, dropping you down to 2. Hey, why not? All 3 of those Ashwings got a free ride, and ultimately we're going to full block the last mystery card that we can't quite see. It was a Command and Conquer. All right, so just full block that. And unfortunately for Azalea, it's going to be a draw up and do it all over again. But those Ashwings are incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, so this is a very bad spot for Azalea right now. Did have to block with their whole hand on that Command and Conquer at the end of the combat chain. And I think it's going to be a pretty easy game for Dramai to close out, unfortunately. I would really question the play where Noah decided to play the Bolton shot into the Kylori and opt to Snapdragon it with his opponent as low as they were, and also having the double E-Strike play into Remorse. So Remorse being probably pretty strong versus Dramai when you're presenting that much damage. But yeah, we do see no blocks in hand. Memorial Ground is going to grab the E-Strike, which I think will only be used as...
Well, I mean, all the equipment was gone, and that's it. It's game over as Noah Clark goes through the Azalea, and the Azalea dream is over, ladies and gentlemen. The bounty lives on as Levi gave it his best effort and falls just a couple steps short of the finish line, but no slouch for Noah Clark on Dromai, who was masterful on the hero, and again, just surprising everybody on what is considered to be maybe one of the third options, kind of like the uninvited guest to many tournaments. Usually you're thinking things like Fi or Icelander or Oldham. Dromai never really weaseling into the picture, but here's Noah Clark showing you that there are ways to play Dromai and there are ways to play her successfully.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, both decks were decks I didn't actually expect to make top 8 at all. So Dramai, while not being the sort of underdog of that matchup, still impressive to have made it this far and onto the finals. Azalea does, unfortunately, meet its end. I think that if, as an Azalea player, potentially watching the coverage this weekend, you should still feel quite vindicated. Dramai has to be a pretty bad matchup with your lack of interactive, sort of ability to interact with the dragons per se. And the Azalea player saw an amazing performance on these aggro decks, and I think that this deck is on the radar now.
Oh, it definitely is, and Noah Clark is showing you why. And he will be moving on to the finals here at the Battle Hardened in Columbus, and we will be bringing you the finals in short order. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back with the finals of the Battle Hardened here in Columbus, presented by the Realm Gaming Network.
Yes, he beat Fi during the Swiss rounds as well, so let's not count him out here. I think that this is a very winnable match for him, but it's going to require a bit of work, maybe a break or two to go his way. I know this is something that he has tested extensively, so I'm looking forward to seeing how he navigates this. I know a lot of players out there have been trying to kind of flirt with Dromai, trying to figure out, okay, how do we make this deck work? I think Noah's been putting on a clinic, but for me personally, I really want to see how he navigates this matchup because if you're somebody who's considering taking Dromai to Worlds, for example, you have to expect to run into Fi. And so any sort of like insights that you can get from a matchup like this, I think are crucial.
Again, friends, it is the finals here. Azalea, that story is all over here. It's going to be an all-uprising final, as it is Noah Clark on Dromai versus Dan Grossclose. That's how I'm pronouncing it. That's how it's written down.
It is gross how close you are to getting that correctly.
I don't know if it's gross close or gross close. Either way, Dan.
It is Dan the man
Yeah.
versus Noah, the living legend. And I noticed that Noah has the custom Ash token there.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
It is. You can get yours here at the venue. So if you're watching this through space and time and the miracle of the internet, well, you can't have one. But you can get one if you go to, if you contact Mara Faris at Blackwing Studios, and you can email her at blackwingaltars@gmail.com, or just check her out on Twitter at Blackwing Studio. She's done an altar for me. It was a Luke Skywalker Katsu altar, both Kodachis. You got the blue Anakin lightsaber. You got the green Luke lightsaber. And then as soon as I received it, Fi came out, and Katsu is now pure hot garbage.
Yeah. It is unfortunate for you, but if you could do me a favor, could you just also order altars for all of the heroes I don't like so that they also are no longer relevant? I also want to point out the custom card sleeve here on that altar that Noah is rocking. If you're not familiar, that's the Riot Fist Bump. Noah comes from a Legends of Runeterra background, big in that community, very accomplished player there as well. So you love to see card game players kind of travel amongst the games, find success wherever they go. And we're, I think, going to be strapping in for one heck of a finals here in Columbus.
No, definitely. Absolutely. Another Legends of Runeterra, kind of cross-pollination would be one Caleb Van Patten, a.k.a. Machine Bay.
Yeah, and there's also a fantastic caster and host in that community.
Yes, Blevins.
Very forgettable.
Blevins.
But
John Blevins.
I swear.
Do you swear?
On all things Cthulhu, I will end you. No, it is me. It is me. I am that person. Give me the recognition that you deserve.
I'm sorry. Your name is Steve, is it? Steve. Thank you, Steve. Back to the game as they're putting their equipment on the board. There's a Mask of Momentum of Furnace. We've got the Shuko Snappies. Oh, boy. It's always cool to see cards that have just kind of stood the test of time through all the way back from Welcome to Wraith. Cards like Snapdragon Scalers, Snatch, things like that. It's great to see cards that have just been consistently good and impactful.
Yeah, you also just love to see the kind of rarity representation as well, because Snaps, just a common, still rocking out with the best of the equipment out there. On the other side, we see those Mage Master boots. So you don't have to own all of the legendaries, folks, if you want to be competitive.
Mage Master Boots sounds like a really cool 90s MC name. Opening for Ice Cube is Mage Master Boots.
I assume that is Run DMC's cat.
It'd be really cool.
Just little boots, Mage Master Boots.
Yeah, and brother of Mage Master Mittens. So we're opening with a Sweeping Blow. We're going to pitch a Chromai. Go ahead. Ash economy is going to be super important here, as Sweeping Blow does create an Ash as well. So pitch a red, play Sweeping. You got 2 in the pocket already. That's not a bad start.
Not a bad start whatsoever. We've got the Ash token created from the pitch and from the Sweeping. So if you're watching at home and you can't read because of the glare there, I apologize for that. That is why we have the 2 Ash tokens. And we're awaiting some blocks. We also see the Go Again, thank you. And the 1 damage leaks through. That is kind of the dream.
Whoa.
And then we see an early Sigil here, but because it's turn 0 and you're going to draw up, you're going to Arsenal the other card. Love this play. It's already 43-39 in the finals.
Incredible. It's like tuning into a football game and the score's 5-2. You're like, what the hell happened here?
Right.
So this is it. It's 43-39, and it's action to the 5 player as Dan the Man Grows Close is going to go ahead and start dropping some heat here as Fi is just burning up inside, and that 1 damage that came through, you know that he wants to sort of settle a score.
Well, Fi is opening up. I believe that's the spreading there. So, yes, 3 damage, Go Again, but also going to be pumping up your other Draconic attacks on the chain. And it looks like that's going to be successful. No relevant on hit. It's just, again, that kind of chain-wide buff. But Noah waves it through. Maybe trying to preserve the hand here. Might have a fistful of dragons. An arc full of dragons for Noah, perhaps. I wish you could have seen Flake's face when I said that.
Yes.
I've been waiting all day.
I don't think anyone's ever
make an
wished
arc
to see
reference.
my face. It's my,
All right.
most of my talents are done through voice as the Emberblade comes through for 3 again. Noah being quickly cut back down to size. The Shuko is going to buff up
This is interesting because this also should be buffed by the opening attack, unless I'm missing something.
Oh, no, it's not Shuko, right? It's the opening attack that buffs the Span Boy up. So the Phoenix Flame coming in for 2. Looks like Dan's going to go ahead and find the other Phoenix Flame. This one is a Marvel Phoenix Flame.
Marvelous play here by Dan, setting up a 4th chain link, still 1 card in hand. We might be seeing either like Assault or a Lava Burst to close things out. And already the pressure being applied to Noah. That's 9 damage that has come through. And actually, we're just going to end there and arsenal that card. Perhaps that's like an Art of War or something that you're setting up for the future, because with that long chain, you would assume that maybe something like Salt and the Moon would go through. But Arsenal, and now we're back to the Dragon Master Noah.
I think that, finding this in this matchup here can actually play a little bit more patiently. You don't have to necessarily race, because you do have effective tools to actually cut through the dragons and pressure face if necessary. So we're going to start off with a dragon nonetheless, and I think that's Kyloria.
Yeah,
coming
that
in for
one
4.
should be Kyloria. It's a little hard to see because of the die, but
Kaboom!
I recognize that art, and looks like that's a Command and Conquer blocking that.
Yeah,
trying to blow it up because of the Phantasm.
Yeah, it used to be Command or Conquer, but they've actually upgraded, and now it's Command and Conquer. You get both effects here. In this case, it's Command and Conquer and blow up a dragon. So a 3-pack of options, but choosing to blow up the dragon with the 6 attack and just taking the Phantasm to town. Kyloria goes bye-bye, and that's pretty good. And I'm having a look here at Dan's list in terms of how many of those Phantasm Poppers we've got. 2 Erase Faces are likely going to be in the deck. There's only 1 Command and Conquer. So
yeah, that was a solo CNC BUAP, because again, you have to blow up a dragon at the end of it, apparently.
Blow up a dragon. Bad.
You said it first.
No, I said bad as in BAD. Blow up a dragon. Bad.
Yeah, but blow up is 2 different words.
No, it's the hyphenated.
Oh, you hyphenate?
I totally hyphenated.
It's the
Also known
Canadian
as
way.
Canada, no problem. It is.
You're Canadian, you're from Canada. I'm American from America. That's how this works. I don't make the rules.
I completely agree. No problem. So the score is metric 39 to 34, in case anyone's keeping track at home.
Yeah, that's probably like 34 washing machines or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know
Because
how
here in
you
America,
guys
we
do
just
it.
measure by anything arbitrary.
Yeah, how many hole-in-ones is that? And how many football fields?
It's a large boulder the size of a small boulder.
Gotcha.
Sort of thing.
All right, so it's 39 bowls of soup to 34
Kilometers.
kilometers. Yeah, we'll do that. Again, so Belittle's going to be showing off the Flame Call Awakening 3 go again, and we're going to go ahead and fetch one of the Minnowisms. And frankly, there's really only one Minnowism in the list. As the kind of way that this is being played here is that you're actually peeling the Minnowism as fuel for the turn. So you're tutoring out a blue pitch that you can pitch then, to go ahead and power the rest of your attacks.
Yeah, this is a solo Minnowism that you're never looking to actually play. As you said, it is simply meant for pitch resources. So it essentially makes Belittle become a 3-attack go again that also nets you pitch for the turn. That's huge for Fi when you're trying to have these big go wide turns. Now, the one downside to Belittle is it's obviously not a draconic attack itself, but it is still a chain link. So pros and cons to consider. I'm sure that Fi is going to have plenty of draconic options to get things going. And here, speaking of searching, now we have a Flame Call Awakening, and because a red card was played before it, this is going to fetch a Phoenix Flame as well. So first we find the Minnowism, now we find the Phoenix Flame, and next we're going to find some damage, I would assume.
You could assume. You know what they say when you assume, Charmer?
That you're wrong, because that is a blocked out Flame Call Awakening. I was incorrect. No damage has been found yet. I would be shocked if this was an entire turn without some leaking through, though.
Miragai is going to be soaking up some of this damage over here, as I feel like, to a degree here, Noah's going to have to be playing a little bit defensively. The Dragons are going to get absolutely just chewed up and spit out by the myriad of attacks here that are just going to be constantly pressuring, and board establishment for Noah is going to be difficult to come by. So he mentioned earlier, or he mentioned yesterday after we spoke to him about how he played Dodge the Fi, and here's the Fi at the final. It's the final boss. Frankly, it's the finals of the Battle Hardened here in Columbus. So you beat the first one, but this is basically the best one now, and you've got to convert here. And as it stands, he's already gained 3 life, but he's already back down to 31. So Dan doing an excellent job of maintaining pressure.
And I have to say that I just love that the finals for this ended up being, the 2 uprising heroes, right? You got the 2 draconic newcomers facing off. You could argue that this is going to be a hot one. I wish, again, that you could see his face at home. He loves this. Like, he's just eating it up. He's got tears of joy.
I will remove your face and mail it somewhere. Not sure where. That's what I'm going to do. Searing Emberblade, 3 still on the hook here. Continuing onwards. That's only the 2nd Draconic Chain Link, so if you want to go ahead and recover one of those Phoenix Flames, you're going to have to pay.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a problem because we still have 2 cards in hand along with 2 floating pitch. So the ability for Fi to play, 2 more cards, then potentially get that Phoenix Flame is huge. The big thing that I find interesting here is that this is going to potentially be such a wide turn that I think Noah has to be considering, how do I make sure Mask doesn't trigger here? Because even though you already blocked the second one, there is very much the opportunity for like 4 more attacks to come in, right? We've got that Blade, we've got 2 cards in hand, we've got Fi's ability to bring back a Phoenix Flame, so even though you've got 1 block in, you have to consider that Mask.
Exactly. The Mask is constantly a looming threat, and what a lot of people don't necessarily realize in terms of the power of the Mask is that it doesn't have to hit. It just needs to threaten. It just needs to be there as this overlording presence that pressures opponents to block attacks that they may not want to block. Block that second or second chain link, or be forced for sure to block the 3rd one. So peeling cards out of the hand, the Mask is doing such a great way, kind of just like magnetoing the cards out of your opponent's hand there.
Yeah, and as the game progresses and we kind of keep an eye on the potential Mask triggers, there is another thing that I want to note as I look at Dan's list. No Ancestrals are included, but he does have 2 copies of Razor Reflex, so we'll keep an eye on things like the pitch available in case there's like a tipping point for that. But no Ancestrals, a little bit of a shock. I usually still see them as a 1 or 2, but this is still going. This turn, very wide. Noah's already down to 27.
Yeah, we're not anywhere close to wrapping this story up here, as we see Noah just taking a quick tally of the graveyard, see what's going on. And all right, we're going to sync this bad boy out. And again, look, these are just blocks that you don't necessarily feel like you want to make, but you kind of have to, because the Mask is a looming threat. And when you can present 6 chain links, that's 2 instances of peeling out blocks from your opponent because the Mask is there. So look at all these Phoenix Flames. It's getting the job done. The damage is leaking through. Noah's at 25, and keep in mind, he has already gained 3 life. So the work has been put in here on Dan's side, and he's not relenting. He's going to just draw up, see what Noah can do to clap back, and then just go right back to work.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the power of the Mask there, that 3 attack Flame Call still forced out that sync because you couldn't afford to have the Mask trigger occur, and you didn't want to use the sync on the Phoenix Flame that you knew was coming next. So
you can't afford it. Not with this kind of inflation going on.
Yeah, no, you got a little bit of value there, and Noah gets to crack back a little bit, make that Ash. Now we are back to Fi. Again, the Noah turn very quick, and I think that we're going to see a lot of this, unless Noah can get some sort of foothold. So Noah needs essentially Dan to have a low value, low tempo turn so that he can maybe have a 2 or even a 3 card hand so he can set up some dragons. And then at that point, you might be able to get a foothold in the game where either Dan attacks your dragons and then you can start evening out, or if Dan ignores your dragons, perhaps you're setting up turns where, a single card hand gets you big damage. But that's going to be the window that Noah's looking for here, as he needs to turn things around.
Yeah, Noah's here is just thinking, it's like, all right, make that Ash, but watch yourself. Make that Ash. But he's being shown what Dan's working with here, which is a lot of red attacks, a lot of aggression. Here comes some of the equipment block. The Crown of Providence is going to go ahead and act as a sink below to a degree, go ahead and take care of a card that you don't quite care for. If there was a card in his hand, something like Charmer, you would immediately dunk it at the bottom of the deck and draw off the top and hope for something better, which frankly would be anything. And ultimately here, we're just, tanking damage and respecting the mask. That's what you're doing. And if you can keep a full grip here, but look how deep this has gone, Charmer. Oh my goodness, it's going all the way to the top. And that's the Lava Burst.
Yeah, this Lava Burst is a big amount of damage, and we're out of cards, but this is one of those sneaky moments where if there was still opportunities or things available, you could also even snap that and then crack down. I've certainly fallen victim to that a few times myself, where you see the end of the chain, you see that rupture, and you think, okay, maybe I've survived long enough through this long ninja attack. Oh, nope, they have Snapdragons, but no cards there, so no worry. The big worry is that you're down to 12 if you're Noah. And here we see...
that's what we're waiting for.
A tome come out, so this is going to be a little bit beneficial.
Yeah, we're going to pop the booties and draw some cards here. Tome of Findall, I'm going to draw you some cards, gain you some life, back up to 17. Keep in mind, he's already gained 3, so he's really gaining a lot of life. He did this in the semifinals as well, gained something like 11 life to keep it going, and ultimately right now with the Sigil of Solace at the opening of the game, and now the 5 life gain off of the Tome, it's another 5 life that was gained, so 8 life gain has kept him in this, but still unrelenting is Dan on Fi, just presenting damage, and different story from previous games.
Oh, we got one of the big dragons. This is one of the marvels. This is one of the legendary ones. When it attacks, you reveal a card. If it's red, it should be the Banish from hand. This is
Dominia, I believe.
Yeah, huge for Noah, because not only is it getting him back in the game in terms of finally threading damage, but if you can banish cards from Fi, you get that level of disruption. That was an Enlightened Strike, so we are going to get the banish here. You can slow him
2
down.
erase faces in hand. Look at Noah just realizing that I could have gotten rid of something. He is just on another planet. There are 2 answers to this dragon very economically, and you know what he's going to say? He's like, all right, well, I'm damned if I do anyway, so let's get rid of a utility card, something to pay for it.
I really want to talk about the heads-up play by Noah here. Knowing that it is 2 erase faces, and your dragon's going to get popped either way, by taking one of the other cards and you leave your opponent with a red card and an erase face, you drastically slow down the amount of damage they can do this turn. So when you know it's a lost cause, even though the temptation might be, okay, I'll get rid of one popper, they'll use the other, and then I don't have to worry about them for the rest of the game, Noah is smart enough to say, hey, I'm at 17 health. This is the rest of the game, and I need to take as little damage this turn as possible. But yeah, you've already ran into the one Command and Conquer in the deck, and then, of course, when you finally drop your cool dragon, you see they have 2 erase faces. That's just an absolutely brutal sequence of events.
That is the equivalent of Tan and Grace turning on the news and finding out that Freddie Freeman signed with the Dodgers and the Braves got eliminated from the playoffs. That's basically what he found when he opened up that hand and saw all of that bad news. That is not good, but you're right in terms of making the best of a bad situation. That is the perfect banish there, getting rid of the fuel to potentially clap back. So Noah's going to have another opportunity here to do some nastiness, as we're going to go ahead and invoke Kyloria, and that's going to scoop some items or a card.
Yeah, you're really looking for some additional gas here. Oh, I love this. So you've made Kyloria, but then you're going to come in with the Enlightened Strike and leave the Kyloria back because you know that your opponent has the erase face. You've seen the information, and so you're going to really make them do something first, either attack into that Kyloria, or he'll wait until he either sees the erase face go or something to that effect. So again, heads up play by Noah. I love this sequence.
Damage gets leaked through. Noah finally managing to punch a little bit back here and bring that life total from the stratosphere into at least the atmosphere, and we're going to come back and we're going to continue to block out some of these attacks. Ronin Renegade is a 3. Go again. Gets stuffed by a Necria. No problem. Knowing that there's one more popper in hand, it might be a matter where he might just leave the Kyloria there and essentially just kind of wait it out to a degree until he finds something like the Mirror Guy that will actually protect it, or just wait flat out for Dan to just play the card outright.
Yeah. Could be like Mirror Guy, could be Chromai. Again, you could wait to see him pitch it, but I like, again, this thought process, because if you can just stick an Erase Face in the hand of Fi, that's like reducing his hand by 1 every turn. It's just not the sort of thing that you want to hold on to if you're the Fi player. So, again, kind of playing chicken. I love this. It's a game of chicken, a game of dare, where you're saying, okay, you can either hold on to it for forever, or you're going to have to get rid of it, and then I'm going to swing with my dragon. And that's one of the better dragons, because when it connects, you get to draw a card. Card economy very big for Noah right now, because he needs as many to block with as possible, but also still needs to generate some offense to get back in this game. So I love what I'm seeing from Noah as he attempts to stabilize here and force the Fi player to make decisions. Honestly, so there, the dragon does eat an attack. Again, kind of that game of chicken, but that saves Noah health, right? That's as good as gaining health there.
It's definitely as good as gaining health. Of all the things I thought it was going to be as good as, it's like kind of like gaining health. But you're right. I mean, anytime that attacks are directed at your permanents, then it's not a big deal, because you're at least extending a little bit more of the runway for you to actually kind of find an opportunity to sort of turn this game around. Because right now it looks like Noah's just been continuously backed up against the wall. There's the Erase Face being presented as an actual attack. It's 6. So I think this is just a matter where Dan is just saying, look, if necessary, I'll just kill your dragons. Like, I can attack them. It's not a big deal. One of the big boys has already been dealt with. But this Erase Face is better presented as damage to shorten the game, to get you closer to 0, and also turn off all your draconic attacks. As that Fate Foreseen is not enough to stop the on-hit effect from Fate Foreseen. So Fate Foreseen, significant implications against many heroes. Perhaps Dromai might not be one of them that's as nasty, but it's still damage.
So here we have the creation of a Chromai. Chromai still gets to attack, which will grant another action point. And that's also going to have Go Again, because obviously Chromai is a red card, so when you play it, going to give your dragons Go Again. And this is, again, just Noah trying to stabilize. And what I really like about the last couple of turns is that Noah's at least forced the Fi player to make decisions. When you're Fi, the only thing you want to do is math. You want to say, how do I make the biggest number possible every turn? How do I present as much damage as possible? The last couple of turns, Dan has actually had to consider, do I hold on to a popper? Do I attack dragons? And so every little bit of like mental disruption that you can throw at the ninja, I think that's also a bit of a win for you. It's like we talked about with Azalea. If you can make people read your cards, it's a little bit of an edge. And here, if you can make Fi do something other than just make big numbers, it's a little bit of an edge.
That's why I use the history pack French cards, because when people are like, can I read that? I'm like, absolutely, go nuts. Impress me. Let's go. So taking a look through the actual graveyard and finding that Phoenix Flame, and as he was cycling through it, we saw the 2 Erase Faces, we saw the Command and Conquer, and that's it. That's all for those Phantasm Poppers. So it's basically all systems go here for the 5-player, because you're so close to the edge. Noah's at 15, and he's already gained 8 life, keep in mind. So the damage and the pressure has been done. It's just a matter of resilience on Noah's side as we're starting things up here and continuing the attack.
Now, if you're Dan, you're pretty excited to see that block. And now we have one of those Razor Reflexes that I mentioned earlier coming through. So this is likely going to connect for 3 more unless there's a defense reaction available to Noah. But even before this Razor Reflex, I was starting to say, Dan has to be pretty happy seeing that you're burning an Enlightened Strike and a Burn Them All. Because, yes, they're great blocks here, 3, but they're also great tools for getting back in the game. We've seen Noah be successful winning with Burn Them All on the broadcast yesterday as a way to close things out. So now Dan's trying to figure out how to follow this up, continue the pressure, has Noah down to 12. We are really starting to hit the danger zone here. There has to be some consideration, I think, for still getting rid of Chromai. As long as there's a dragon like that on the board, Noah can generate damage with a 0 card hand. And so here we see the Phoenix attack the Chromai, which did 1 damage to it. Wasn't enough to get rid of it, but
we're hitting the mask, though. That's the important part. So Mask Trigger gets done as the Brand with Cinderclaw got hit off the back of that Razor Reflex, the Phoenix, and finally the last attack. So we're drawing a card here. Wish you guys could see inside the studio because it looks like Ray Charles is having a nap in this room right now. That's only for us. That's only for us. Here we go. Continuing the attack again, just peeling away cards and life total. That's what you got to do here, friends. And Searing Emberblade's gonna tie a nice little bow on this package of damage that has been presented to Noah. Noah has no dragons on board. Life total evaporating quickly.
And so we're going to have a block out on the blade here as well. We're going to have Phi activate to send one more Phoenix Flame here. That's going to connect. Noah now down to 11, but saving the card in hand. We also still have one in the arsenal. So again, probably trying to get some sort of dragon online because every time you make one, you're getting a little bit of chip damage back while also forcing the Phi player to at least answer the dragon. We'll see if that's the case here, but you're just hoping for Phi to slow down, and the problem is it's been all gas. Note, this was a sigil, going to gain health and then draw up.
That's 11 life gain right now for Dromai if you're keeping track at home, if you're playing the home game, friends. It's so effectively could be at 2, but he's at 13, so still hanging on. And Phi here has to bust through, and it's perfectly possible because at this particular juncture in the game, you'd think that Dromai, Noah wants to have like 2 or 3 or in the perfect world of more than that, dragons on the board. But this is what Phi can do. When you're chaining together so many attacks at so many different interesting, unique attack values, you got the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, you can pick and choose how you want to cleanly and efficiently kill these dragons. And we saw that. And not only that, those are free hits for mask triggers as well. So it's almost like a free ride. It's just extra sprinkles when you're going ahead and just constantly assaulting this Dromai player. Noah was so adamant about playing Dodge the Phi, and now the final boss has shown up, and it is a rough ride.
So here we see Sync block out the Mounting Anger. He had the card in Arsenal, but he chose to send that, so now adding another card to his hand. I like that because unless it was an absolutely crucial card in your arsenal, shipping it and getting a new card that you can potentially block with here is a pretty big deal. We have the Emberblade follow-up, still 2 cards left in the hand of Dan after this as well. And Noah taking even more damage here. We almost might be getting to the point where Noah will be forced to block out and try to fatigue Phi. And I'm not sure that that's going to be a viable game plan just because so much damage was leaked early on. Really struggling to see how he can get himself back into the game. But if there's anybody who can do it, Noah's that player. Very experienced on Dromai. We see another block here. We're going to activate the Phi ability to bring one of these Phoenix Flames out.
All right, down to 9 now. So well past, he's on borrowed time here. Noah's doing his best, and again, Noah, one of the car full of Canadians that showed up all the way from Toronto, and all 3 of which actually made it to the top 8, and he's the final Canuck standing, and he's going to be pitching away a Tome of Fyendal, presenting a Command and Conquer. There is opportunity to actually block with equipment here and maybe drop 1 card from hand, preserve the arsenal if you're very, very into it. But at the same time, if your least important card is your arsenal card, you just tank this damage, chuck that away, keep your equipment, and then absolutely just blow back with 4 cards, plus obviously everything else that you can get. The Phoenix Flames, the mask of momentum threatening constantly. It's a nasty, nasty reality here for Noah, but this is the finals, and he has practiced. He has put the time in. So is Dan, and Dan is in the driver's seat now.
So we see it was a belittle that was taken. I was going to say we're going to learn a lot here about, whether or not he keeps that card and, make speculation. I figured if there was a block there, they might have been trying to set up an Art of War, and I also think that that's probably why Noah decided to go with the offense of Command and Conquer as opposed to trying to play the Fyendal's Tome, because if your opponent sets up an Art of War turn in Arsenal and then they get free reign, that's probably game over when you're at 9 health. But as it is, we're already seeing a massive opener here. We've got an attack for 3, blocked for 3, an attack for 3, blocked for 3, and we're coming right again with another attack for 3. This is also going to get blocked, and so Fi. This is the like death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? Fi can just do these quick go again attacks for 3. You're going to block with 3 cards, and then when you come to this 4th Phoenix Flame, it just feels bad to block it with your last card.
No.
You know you can't really do it, but you're also taking 1 damage a turn, and when you're now down to 8 health, that's a problem. But this is going to leak even more. Coming all the way down to 5 health for Noah, and this is just going to be a draw up because you blocked with your entire hand, and we're right back to Dan going on offense.
Yeah, Dan's going to need to, trip over some untied shoelaces or something. A meteor is going to have to fall from the sky into this side of the table here to get anything going on Noah's side because, frankly, Noah's just been donating cards to the cause and hasn't had much else to do. And look, going right back to work. No relenting here. It's just 3 go again. I'm going to start buying cards out of your hand. Here, cool. Thanks for the sweeping blow. What else you got? All right, I'm going to send an Ember Blade. That's also 3. So let's just start eating up your hand. Mirror Guy, bye-bye. What else you got? Let's keep going. So we're just preserving life at this point.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think that one is a 4... Oh, apparently it's, sorry, there's a bit of a glare. It might have been a blue then, but we have the Phoenix Flame coming in now for 2 because of the Shuko, and so that's blocked. And then another burst.
That's
Good.
it. That's all,
That's
ladies
it.
and gentlemen.
Good
My
game.
goodness. Wow, Charmer, honestly, it was just, look, it is a tough matchup from start to finish here on Noah's side of the board, as the mask was constantly looming, and Dan didn't even consider the equipment at any point there. But once you just bust through it, the only real threat there was the dragon. My goodness, I think I have it here in my limited deck. It was Dominia.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So on the Dominia turn, absolutely crushing chain of events for Noah because you were trying to establish some board presence and also chip away at Fi's hand. So when you got that reveal and you saw 2 erased faces, you could see it, in the hand gestures, right? Noah's like, what did I do to deserve this, right? You said I have to dodge Fi for the entire day. I get Fi in the finals, and then when I do run into Fi, variance, not super kind, but let's not take anything away from either player. Dan navigated that incredibly well, so congratulations, Dan. You are our winner here in Columbus of the Battle Hardened, and again, I want to congratulate Noah on an outstanding performance on Dromai because we saw some exciting games from him.
We did see some exciting games from him. Not quite there yet. However, Dan did play masterfully, was in the driver's seat the whole way. Maybe a cool luck of the draw, drawing those 2 erase faces at the right time, but hey, that's the way it goes. And ultimately, part of the story of this weekend also was just that Azalea almost got there. We're so close. But frankly, a great weekend altogether. Big thanks to the production team, to everybody who showed up here, to Brendan Patrick, to yourself, to Keith, to Jacob at Realm Games, man. It has been a great, great weekend. Okay, so we just heard now that we're going to open the card on stream. He's on his way here. So let's just get that all wrapped up.
Going to go to the tables here because we're going to see what our victor has won.
Any predictions, Brendan? Any predictions?
You know what? I think Fi is going to get a Fi card, so I'm going to say Shuko.
You got Shuko. I'm going with Alluvian Constellus. Too bad. I just like saying Alluvian Constellus. What do you got? What are you saying? Well, you can't say Alluvian Constellus, Brendan Patrick. What else is in the pool? Snapdragon Scalers.
Ghostly?
No, not at all.
Right?
Ghostly Touch? All right, so Brendan Patrick's on Ghostly Touch. I've got Alluvian Constellus. We got Shuko. Let's ask Diana Ross back there. What do you think, Elaine? All right, she has no idea where she is, let alone what's going on.
You couldn't hear her, because she's not near a mic, but what she officially said was Flaming Hot Cheetos.
Oh,
that
Flaming
was
Hot Cheetos.
Her choice.
All
and,
right.
Here we are. We're going to find out.
Rip it, baby.
What it is. Yeah, let's do flip it and rip it.
It is.
Oh.
Okay, enough of this blue balling. Let's go, baby.
Oh. I forgot that these come graded now. That's
Oh, it's Ghostly Touch. But you said Illuvian Constellus first.
I'm the one who reminded you Ghostly Touch was in a pool, so I'm taking 10%.
Oh, what a gorgeous looking card.
Finder's fee.
Amazing. All right, well, friends, I think that that does it for the Weekend Charmer. It has been a pleasure to work with you. Brendan Patrick is also here.
Get in here, buddy. It's
Come
the
on in.
end.
All right, friends, thank you so much for tuning in. Send us off, Charmer.
Thank you for joining us here in Columbus. Thank you for watching. We love you, Flesh and Blood community. You're the reason that this game is great, and we will see you next time.